Finally, with respect to real property negotiations between the city and Michael and Susan Jordan regarding property at 1355 Park Avenue relative to potential acquisition of a utility easement to facilitate the Park Avenue undergrounding project. An update was provided and direction was provided to these agencies' negotiators regarding making an additional counteroffer to the property owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. The special session is closed. We'll now go into a study session. This will be on car sharing. Are there any, is there any public comment? Maurice? Oh, Peter, don't fight.
Mayor Davis, before we start, can I ask, I decided that since we have a new city manager, that I would take some photographs. Now, the last meeting was the first meeting, but I wasn't prepared. And so I'm wondering if anyone has objection. I won't take any flash photography, but I'm going to set it up. Is that okay?
No problem.
Who are you going to take pictures of?
Well, I'm just going to put my camera right here, my digital camera, and move it around. It'll be on a tripod. So
Yeah, as
I
long
hope
as
you're all presentable.
Well, I think it's fine for us. I just hope that members of the public don't feel intimidated by that. That's the only thing I'd be concerned.
I'm mostly
Is it
going
just for
to.
the car share item or
No,
for
no.
all night?
No, I don't know how long it's going to be. I mean, I'm taking pictures of us, of the staff,
Why?
mostly Pat O'Keefe. Why?
Yeah.
Because he's starting a new job, that's why.
Well, let's consider that and bring it back to the next meeting. How's that? So that the council members have a chance to think about whether they want to be media stars or not. Okay, Peter, let's move.
Hi. Good evening, council members, mayor. We're here tonight to discuss car sharing, and we have two guests, Bryce Nesbitt and Wendy Silvani, and I'm just here to introduce them. Basically, Bryce, come on up. Bryce Nesbitt is, among other things, a member of our Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee in the city, and he also happens to work for the Emeryville Round as a consultant, and also for City Car Share. And he's going to give us a kind of an overview of car sharing in general, and then Wendy will discuss what is still a draft proposal that the TMA might be working on with car sharing. And I also wanted to make one correction before we get started.
My own, but I didn't put that in there.
Gentlemen, could we give some attention to
Sorry,
Mr. Peter?
All right.
Thank you.
One correction in the staff report, under the recommendations in the staff report. If you turn to that page, there are three recommendations. In the second one, we'll discuss them after Bryce and Wendy go forward. But there is there are grant funds that may be available from the TFCA, and here it says TMA. So that's a big difference between the TMA is not offering any grant funds to the city. It would be the TFCA, which is the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, from the CMA, the Congestion Management Agency. So that's just one thing I wanted to clear up in the beginning. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Peter?
Sure.
My understanding was that redevelopment agency money might go into this car share.
Let's talk about that maybe at the end after Bryce. Wendy
Here's
also
my
needs
question.
to go.
I understand that we're going to select perhaps one car share vendor. Right?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
possibility.
And Bryce, is your company going to respond to that RFP?
City Car Share has already responded.
You need to speak into the microphone.
City Car Share has already responded to an RFP to the TMA.
Okay. Mayor Davis, I'm a little bit uncomfortable hearing from one prospective vendor, but
What is the pleasure of the council? I have no problem with this. I think we know Bryce. He's worked very hard for us on the bicycle committee, and
Yeah, I
does
mean-
anyone else have an
No,
objection to
I don't have a
this?
problem, and I did invite Denise Pinkston, and I don't know why she's not here, so.
Yeah, I mean,
She said she couldn't make it.
it's an open meeting, and people, I mean,
Right, Bryce is not going to really be talking about the company he works for. He's talking about, in general, how car sharing works.
okay.
Well,
and-
this was my take on the matter, that because I've had the pleasure of listening to Bryce at the bicycle
right.
committee meetings, and he's looking at the overall picture and how it fits in
Right, right.
in relative terms to the car share.
Right.
Let's move ahead.
Okay.
Okay, and one additional piece of background, I co-founded a company in Emeryville. It was Next Bus Information Systems, dedicated to telling you when the bus is coming. And that system is still operating to this day on the Emery-Go-Round. City Car Share is a nonprofit, and one of our founding missions is to promote the idea of car sharing. And really, that's the capacity which I'm here in tonight. So we offer educational materials to people who are starting car shares, and we'll give a presentation to just about anyone who wants to hear about car sharing. So very little about City Car Share other than our experience in operating car sharing here for the last 5 years, almost 6 years. So what is car sharing? Car sharing offers members, it's a membership-based service that offers access, 24-hour access to cars which are distributed around a city. So rather than a central location to pick up a car, these cars are parked in neighborhood areas, small parking lots, and you access them electronically. Access is typically with some sort of a little electronic device, so you have an electronic key that will open the car that you've reserved. And all of the costs are bundled in. So rather than buying a vehicle for $20,000 and then putting gas in it and driving it, you pay by the hour. Car sharing is very common in Europe, and it's getting started in the United States. There are now about 30 cities that have it. In the Bay Area, there's car sharing now in El Cerrito, Berkeley, Oakland, and San Francisco. So we're surrounded by car sharing, but not yet anything in Emeryville. To give some sense of scale, City Car Share has 6,500 active members sharing 200 cars at 100 locations. There are 2 other companies that operate car sharing in the Bay Area. Zipcar, a for-profit company with about 5,000 members, and FlexCar, another for-profit company. So car sharing offers a number of environmental benefits, and that's where City Car Share started into it. Variable pricing. If you drive less, you'll pay less. The studies have shown, and I've brought some of the studies with me today, a dramatic reduction in the need for parking. Each City Car Share or each car share spot that's put in displaces somewhere between 10 and 20, depending which survey you'd like to believe, other parking spaces. It makes for a modest reduction in the number of miles traveled by its members, and typically the cars are better maintained and more fuel efficient and better mileage vehicles than the average fleet. It's strongly supportive of public transit, bicycling, walking, and in fact it really only works well in areas where those are strong. And Emeryville has a history of car sharing. If you take a look at this picture, which is on the screen, if you look carefully, what building you see in the background there?
Woodfin? No.
I believe that's Woodfin Suites. The sign says car share parking only. And when I last checked about a month ago, it was still up. And that's from a UC Berkeley research study. It took me some time to figure out exactly where that sign had come from. That operated a car share in Emeryville for about 6 months. It was unfortunately not a success. City Car Share proposed to move in to Emeryville some years ago, and in fact came...
This is on Christie, is that it?
It's on Christie in front of PPP.
Yeah, okay.
And then in the background you'll see Woodfin Suites. City Car Share proposed to move into Emeryville, and I believe an agreement was even inked, and then that deal fell apart. FlexCar, one of the for-profit competitors, moved in and placed a pickup truck at IKEA, but quickly pulled it out. Emeryville has the density, but in many ways it's not classic car-sharing territory. Car ownership rates are relatively high. There are many gated parking garages where there's ample parking. Transit access is good in many ways through the Emery-Go-Round, but indirect. Some of the shopping areas are big box areas, not the kind of retail. These are indicators where car sharing has worked in the past and where Emeryville is presently different. There are walking mobility barriers, and we know these well. I-80, the railroad tracks are hard to get across. I'll show you a map of members in a moment. But all that said, there's opportunity here, and the question is, and this is up on the slide, if we're committed to doing it, how do we make it work? And the answer is to get multiple users. Car sharing experiences very high peak loads among its traditional audience. So people who use car sharing don't drive to work. That wouldn't work. So these are people who get to work some other method. And that means that car sharing's need peaks in the evenings and on weekends. And there's a graph up here which shows Saturday at the peak and Monday at the drop. The demand for car sharing seems to be about 2 to 1. So it's twice as popular on the weekend as it is on a Monday. And that's not so surprising because all of those people are getting to work some other way rather than driving. And so to make a program work in an area that otherwise wouldn't support it, you want to bring a lot of users in who drive at different times of day. Residents, city staff, commuters, employees who might drive during the middle of the day, senior citizens, people who have different peak needs than the traditional user, to help even out that demand curve and make it work financially without a big subsidy. So success factors for car sharing, and these are drawn from City Car Share's experience in the Bay Area and drawn from these reports. They seem to be pretty much the same. Clustering vehicles, making sure there's enough vehicles so if the one you want isn't available, you can walk to the next one. Vehicles that are visible from the sidewalk, so people walking by learn about the program. The traditional information, education, and outreach, and a partnership with car rental. Car rental and car sharing go hand in hand. If you want to take a car for a week, you're better off with Hertz, Avis, or Enterprise. If you want a car to go visit your friend who happens to live in the South Bay, you're better off with car sharing. And stability, permanence, and reliability. And this is really one of the reasons that City Car Share pulled out. We really don't want to move into an area as City Car Share that we don't stay in. Because if you're going to get people to change their habits, to sell a car, give up a car, they really have to have the message that you're there and you'll be there for the long haul. And so I'd like to stress that for you. Look for programs that have some stability. Otherwise, you won't get the uptake that you're hoping for. This time around, there are potential for more partners than the last 3 efforts with car sharing in Emeryville. The Emeryville TMA, Wendy Silvani will speak in a moment, the developer community, the business community, which may be able to do fleet replacement, and the city departments. I'll quickly describe a fleet program. A fleet program with car sharing works much like a traditional fleet program, except that you can lease the cars for only part of the day. So traditionally, if you were to go out and lease some vehicles or buy some vehicles, you have to own them 24 hours a day. That only makes sense. With car sharing, you can buy the cars or lease the cars for only part of the day, say 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the reason that works is the characteristic of car sharing. The evening and weekend people in the community, the people in the community will pick up and use the cars during the evenings and weekends, and the businesses can have exclusive access to those cars during the day. So this has been pioneered at the municipal level by 2 cities, Berkeley, California, and Philadelphia, PA, both of which took some of their city fleet cars and sold them, and essentially outsourced the management of them to a car-sharing organization, a different one in each case. And they each lease the cars from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. for the business day, and then the same cars are available for the community to use off hours. So it's a very good potential synergy. So in 6 years of operating car share in the San Francisco Bay Area, City Car Share has learned a lot about what works. I'm going to bring up a map here, hopefully. So this is a map of California at the moment. And I'm going to zoom in on the Bay Area. Each black dot is a City Car Share member. It's their home address. And I only have the data for City Car Share. I'd be happy to show you the other car shares as well, but that's not something that's typically shared. So the San Francisco Peninsula there and the East Bay, and you can see there's really quite a blizzard of dots. I'll zoom in on San Francisco first. And if you can try to get the lay of the land quickly, you'll see the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge and the major BART lines. And the membership tends to follow those major transit corridors.
Bart.
BART and the major bus lines such as the 38 Geary and the light rail in San Francisco. And the places with poor transit access, city car share hasn't attracted a lot of members. This map roughly parallels the density map, but not really. It really parallels the transit mode share, the people who take something other than driving to work. I'll move over to the East Bay.
While you're doing that, I just noticed there wasn't a whole lot along the Caltrain line.
Well, the Caltrain stations are spaced fairly far apart.
Right.
Another area that city car share moved into, well, this is the Caltrain line that I'm showing, this purple line, I hope. And the dots that are down there are all near Caltrain, even though there's not a huge number of them.
Right.
Again, those people probably have cars at home, and so the reason that they use city car share is for a work-based trip. If I zoomed out, you'd also see a fair number of dots in Hawaii, and quite a cluster in Los Angeles and Seattle. And these are people who visit regularly, but come from the airport via BART and don't need to have a car the whole time, and so they share instead. So zooming in on the East Bay, again, the dots do follow the major transit corridors, and they get fairly sparse in two notable areas. One area where they're relatively sparse is down in the Jack London Square area, which is an area where City Car Share placed a location but had to pull it out. And there's not yet much activity in the Emeryville area.
Bryce, let me ask you about this, because the Capitol Corridor has really had extensive success over the past 3 to 5 years, and one would think that they would be prime targets for car share membership, both in Jack London Square and at the Emeryville station.
You're thinking of people who commute to work via the Capitol
Right.
Corridor, assuming that they live here and work in Sacramento.
Or vice versa. Live in Sacramento and Davis and commute down here.
Well, they wouldn't show up on our maps as being Emeryville or Jack London Square residents. We'd see them in Sacramento, and I can zoom out and show you where they were. That's where their home location is. A weakness of the data we have is that we don't always know their work address, and many people are members of car sharing so that they can do midday trips to the dentist or emergency ride home kind of thing. So they take transit in regularly, but they have a backup option with car sharing.
Well, see, that would certainly be operative in Emeryville because we have so many daytime workers here. They may or may not be car share members, but we don't capture that information because they're coming from someplace else.
And that's one of the reasons that the participation of the TMA is tremendous, because that is the avenue to reach those people, many of those people who come in every day but don't live here.
Bryce, do you know if there's a correlation between car share members and the people who enroll in Guaranteed Ride Home?
Guaranteed Ride Home in San Francisco is eligible. You can use car sharing. No, that study hasn't been done to my knowledge. What's been done is transit passes and mode to work, and there the correlation is extremely strong. And I can show that to you in all of the reports. I don't know about Guaranteed Ride Home as a program.
But do you know what that program is?
I know what that program is.
Okay.
And really, people roll their own Guaranteed Ride Home program using city car share, where they take transit to work, but
Right.
they have access to a car if they need it during midday. I think it's very valuable. I'll say that city car share needs a better pricing program for that particular program, and I'll try to avoid the pricing question after this.
I know from the CMA, the average mileage of the taxi rides that are utilized through Guaranteed Ride Home run in the neighborhood of like 80 miles one way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really long-haul trips in a way.
Yeah, and in that way, it's not a great match.
No.
But you can, they take that car overnight and presumably return it 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. the next morning. Okay, so what community characteristics are supportive of car sharing? One of the major characteristics has to do with sidewalk vitality. So places with on-street parking really do well. And you might ask, how is that even related? But if you're going to share a car, chances are you're going to have to walk a block or two to get it. And the question is, are those sidewalks vital and active, and are those places that you're willing to walk a certain distance? So safe, walkable streets with 24-hour vitality. And on-street parking is something that helps energize that. When you have on-street parking, people are coming home, finding a place to park, and then becoming part of the pedestrian environment. Strong public transit is highly correlated, walkable destinations, and then I emphasize the same point again, the lack of gated parking. So something that we see that's a negative correlation with city car share membership is a gated building, a building where you drive into the building as your destination, some sort of gate opens, and you never become part of the pedestrian environment. Other things that help, of course, are the traditional unbundling of parking costs. There's a cautionary note from one of the researchers on some of the unintended effects of unbundling. Mixed-use parking lots and district parking, where a single parking garage might serve multiple needs. And again, part of what that does is it gets people to park, become part of the pedestrian environment for a short period of time, and then reach their final destination. So what could the City Council act on? Of course, this is a study session. You're just learning and not acting. But things that municipalities can and have done in order to support car sharing are providing access to on-street parking to qualified car shares. Car sharing pays more for parking than an individual would, and it's one of the biggest costs that all car shares face. And in San Francisco, the competition among the 3 car shares for parking spaces is fierce. Bidding the prices way, way up. People now advertise on Craigslist $175 a month or $250 for car sharing. And so parking is a huge cost, where an individual who owns 2 or 3 cars can park 1 or 2 of them on the street at no additional charge. Car sharing has to pay for those. So access to on-street parking is one way to encourage car sharing. New developments, there could be some standards. I've attached to the handout that I'll give you a copy of San Francisco's ordinance relating to buildings with over 50 units and car sharing. Unbundling of parking, where people pay for parking separately from the units. It's particularly powerful if they lease parking. And
Why does that help?
if you unbundle parking in one way that it's done, where you sell the unit separately from the parking spot, there's a psychological effect where people want to buy the parking space now because they might not be able to buy it later. And so people have found that they buy more spots than they need when they get the chance to unbundle parking. If they lease parking, on the other hand, they use exactly the amount of parking they need because they don't want to pay a cost for something they're not using. So that's a danger of deeded, unbundled parking. And I have some backup material on that in the handout. Getting information out over time. If the TMA has a giant information program to bring car sharing to Emeryville, that will fade over time. It'll be a new thing for a while. And how do you get information out over time? And one suggestion is that in developments, one of the TDM conditions be that there be a notice board, just a simple bulletin board, cork board or behind glass, where current transit schedules and maps are placed. So people just sort of run into them as they're going to check the mail. You have a lot of people who live near a bus route or a transit option but don't know that it exists. So access to information, continually refreshing that as they're going through using the building normally. And I have a question that I'll pose, and I don't know the answer to this. It's a tricky one. if you were to have an ordinance that mandated that developers provide a certain number of car sharing spots per 1,000 square feet, what would happen? Let's say that there were 2 spots at a particular new residential tower, and 2 different car share companies come in and both want that spot. How do you resolve that? Or alternatively, you have 2 spots that are mandated as part of a new development, and no car sharing company wants to move in. So it's something to think about. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So that's it for my presentation, and Wendy of the TMA will mention a program that she'd like to get started.
Bryce, before you leave, what do you consider to be a critical mass of cars in a 1 square mile area for car sharing?
Never put just 1 car in a location. Always put at least 2. And try to space your cars so that if a car isn't available at the first spot, it's a comfortable walk to the second spot. This is, if you're good with Emeryville geography, you would be able to pick out the BART station, MacArthur BART on the right, which has a dot, and then 5 dots in Emeryville. And I feel that 5 locations in Emeryville, each with 2 cars, would cover the area adequately.
Would give you a base that might be viable.
That's what you'd need in order to serve the entire community with car sharing. 5 locations, 2 cars each. If you were to start a program, I would recommend against putting 1 car at each of the 5 locations, and instead pick a section, probably near the Amtrak station, for your first cars, and then grow from that success. Don't spread things too thinly. Otherwise, what happens is someone needs a car, and they can't get it. And then you lead to disappointment.
So there could be one at the public market to walk over the bridge if the Amtrak one isn't available. For example.
Yes, absolutely.
For example.
1 on each side of the Amtrak bridge would be a great small-scale start to a program. And then try to tell people that if they want, they can take the Emery-go-round to MacArthur BART, where FlexCar and City Car Share both have 3 cars.
Now,
And I'll be available to answer lots of questions also after Wendy comes up.
Let's have Wendy talk, and then if we have any questions, we'll ask them.
while Wendy's coming up, I'll ask my question here.
Sure.
I noticed there's a pickup truck available kind of, I guess, near Kerala or something, near the Berkeley Bowl, not far from there. And I'm not sure whether it's the company that you work for, another one of the two. But what happens if there are like specialty needs for hauling or whatever? And I never see that pickup truck being used. It's always parked there.
Yeah, the pickup truck is at UC Storage. And
Right.
the people who put it there thought that would be a great synergy, and it hasn't worked out that well.
Got it.
One of the advantages of car sharing is that you can match your vehicle type to your trip type. And we see people who've purchased a smaller car to own and then use city car share when they have a specialty need. So diversity of car types is an advantage, and all 3 Bay Area car shares offer multiple car types ranging from fun to very practical.
Thank you, Bryce.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Wendy Silvani with the TMA. I need to just stress that we have not technically adopted this as a program yet. My board will be having it on its next agenda, and I do anticipate that we'll vote it in and get going on it, but I just need to preface the comments with this is a program that I have started. How's that? Like that? Okay. That I have sent to the board and asked for their initial feedback, and so it will be on our next agenda. And I've gotten very good feedback so far, so I'm not anticipating that it won't be happening. But basically, what I like about it is it begins to add to the family of transportation services and options that we talked about when I came before you back in December. you know, it's good because it shares and leverages the resources that are all working towards the common goal of reducing single occupancy vehicles and lessening the demand for people driving around town unnecessarily by themselves. It benefits Emery-Go-Round users, it benefits other transit users, it encourages lots of new users to try transit because they have an option and they know that if they do need a car during the day or at other times, there is one available to them. It will benefit the residents and other people who may not really need a car but may kind of be on the edge of needing a car, or who may not need a second car, which will help tremendously as well. Most importantly, what car sharing does is it's not a standalone program, but it augments and it complements other transit options. So it offers people flexibility. Bryce mentioned the type of car, if you need a road car to take a big trip or something, but you don't need it Monday through Friday every day. So it gives people a lot of flexibility and options to use a car when they need it and for what they need it. I believe that Peter gave you all a copy of my proposal, so I won't take the time to go through it because I know you've all done that. But basically, the concept, what I have in mind for the TMA is for us to take and use TMA money as seed money to start up and subsidize pods until they can become self-sufficient. So that what I envision, and I've met with Bryce and I've also met with the other two car sharing companies to come up with this outline, I envision 6 to 8 months of TMA seed money for each 2 cars, whether it's 2 cars in one pod or 1 car each in 2 different pods. You know, those are details that we'll get to once my board approves the program. But once a pod is generating enough revenue to pay what it costs, the TMA will take that same money and start up another pod. So we'll be kind of recycling, we'll be using our money to seed new pods. And if we're having to subsidize one for longer than the board is comfortable, we'll pull it and take the money and start another one somewhere else. So that I see it as, you know, enabling and facilitating kind of the eventual 5 to 7 pods throughout town within a 2-year period. That's kind
Wendy,
of my concept.
if your board okays this, and it sounds like a really well thought out program, I understand it's your intention to market this on the Emery-Go-Round buses to your customers on the Emery-Go-Round buses. Did I misperceive that? Because they're natural people to...
We'll be marketing every which way we can.
Okay.
We'll be marketing directly with the PBID members and within their companies on our website and our schedules on the buses. We'll be doing a lot of marketing around starting up locations and making sure that
big
people
housing
enroll in.
complexes?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Wendy? Peter, did you have some closing remarks you wanted to make?
Yes, so I think what we have as a recommendation from staff is that you consider that we do have a pool car here at for Public Works staff that I use a lot, for example. That is a possible candidate for as Berkeley has done, to switch that out to a pool car or a car share vehicle. There are some advantages and disadvantages of doing that. One is the cost. It would, if no one else used that car, if we were to go ahead and not use the pool car that's sitting there, or sell it, or just put it in the courtyard, and have a shared car out in front here, for example, it would be open to use on the evenings and weekends to the public. But no one may sign up for it, and in that case, it would cost the city about $1,600 a month to support that car. That's quite a bit more than we're paying right now for our one pool car in Public Works. It's hard to put together all the costs, but the car that we have right now is already 6 years old. We don't usually retire them, I think, until they're 10 years old. So we're entering maybe the period where we might have more maintenance on our pool car that we own. That all those things can affect the cost of it. But so it could be worth doing for a one-year experiment. If it fails, then what Bryce was talking about is that that's not a good way to go about doing it. Maybe it's better to wait until we could see how the ones do at the Amtrak station and then augment that, or so there's advantages and negatives to waiting or to starting now.
And
But-
what about going after the TFCA money?
And that's also part of it, is that the TFCA did fund part of the switch out that Berkeley did with part of their fleet. I think that they replaced 10 cars of their fleet. But the CMA doesn't like doing small grants with that TFCA money, and this would be a small grant, under probably $10,000. They wouldn't pay for the whole cost of the $1,600 per
But
month.
if you worked it into a multi-year grant, you
That's
could pop
possible.
it up to their level.
It's possible, right,
Yeah.
right. So we could apply for it, and they said we could apply for it, but they may turn us down. So we can't guarantee
Apply
that.
for it and do it multi-year. And
Yeah,
then they give
that's right.
them
We
a
only get about
jump.
$10,000 a year
Right.
in TFCA grants. So
But we've done that in the past because our
Multi-year,
money
yeah.
is 10,000 or less.
That's right.
But if you do it multi-year, then you
right.
can put it.
Unfortunately, right now we're negative. We've borrowed already against that. So they're not wanting to give us a lot of years in advance when we're already negative. Usually we wait until we have 5 years worth of
Okay.
funds or so and then do something. So I don't know if they'd
Ken,
agree
go
to it.
ahead.
Peter, about how much public use would be necessary for the car to break even?
Well, I think that Bryce has said something like 20 to 30 members is that right? Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, 20 to 30 members is usually what you try to get to sustain a car. Every new member that uses it would decrease our $1,600 a month cost.
Okay.
So, depending on how well the TMA markets it, if they move ahead with their proposal, maybe people would want to use the car that's located here. We could try to convince other businesses in the surrounding area here, like maybe Paulo LeDuc, if they have weekend catering business, maybe they would want to use it, or evening catering use, or something like that. We thought about sharing it maybe with Pixar, but they would have the same kind of issues that we would have, which is that they would want to have it reserved for them during the daytime, and
Right.
it wouldn't work probably. So,
About how much would it cost to be a member of CarShare? Does that depend on your usage?
well, it varies from company to company. There's usually a monthly charge, and then there's an hourly charge, and then sometimes you have a mile charge as well. So they vary, but
it's about a third of the cost of maintaining your own vehicle, right?
depending on the usage.
that.
It's affordable, that's the point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if it gets really low usage, the shared car, then it wouldn't be as affordable probably as.
When I looked at,
What happens if you are in an accident and that with body damage to the car or personal injury? How's that covered? Especially
yeah,
in
you can-
California law. We're not a no-fault state, so how does that work?
Sure. Car sharing as a concept bundles all the costs that would normally be fixed costs into a variable cost. So normally you buy a car, you pay per year for insurance, and then you pay per tankful for gas. All that's bundled into the hourly or mileage fee of a car share, and that's how all 3 Bay Area car shares work. So all of them provide insurance at different levels. So if there's an accident, it's covered. City car share policy, the policy is a $1 million policy, and the member has a $500 deductible for the accident. So if you totaled the car with injury to someone else, you'd pay $500. FlexCar has a similar policy. Zipcar, same concept, except they have the state minimum insurance rather than the $1 million. So generally limited to around $500 in the case of a worst-case accident.
Can I ask, following up, what's the age range of people that can participate?
18 up. And the 18 to 21s are a special case and pay an additional fee for that,
To offset the additional insurance cost?
to offset the additional insurance cost and potentially the additional maintenance cost. It's a question for car sharing, whether to include those people. But also, I think that as a mission-based organization, we don't want people to grow up, get their driver's license, own their own car for 2 or 3 years, and then try to convert them to car sharing. We'd rather try to bring them in the fold right away.
What kind of investigation is done as to people's driving records when they try to become a member?
All car shares check driving records and have standards. In the case of city car share, there have to be no DUI in the last 4 years and no serious incidents in the last 2 years, 1 accident maximum. So a clean but not spotlessly clean driving record.
What about speeding tickets?
Speeding tickets are okay below a certain level. And so all car shares perform a check and will reject members. City Car Share rejects around a little over 1% of the people who apply based on driving record.
All right. And I just want to say the council is, I mean, whatever we're thinking about doing here, I don't know if we have to donate the vehicle if we want to do this, but I'm not comfortable with the city being in a program that's only has $1 million in insurance. Honestly, that is nothing anymore these days. I mean, if you injure somebody badly that can't work again, $1 million doesn't go very far. You need an umbrella policy of at least another, maybe up to $5 million. So I don't, and typically those are not overly expensive. It's that first million that's expensive. So I don't know how we would be indemnified or defended from that, but if we're a member, it seems to me we're vulnerable.
Sure. I'll ask about the umbrella coverage. My understanding from Peter is that the city is self-insured for use of that vehicle now. And so in the case for City Car Share, where the city fleet vehicle, it would provide that first $1 million coverage, which isn't currently covered. Do we have an answer on that? Is there someone who knows the answer to that question?
We'd have to check with our insurance authority on
Well, I mean, yeah, I can just tell you that that's problematical, very much so, particularly with teenagers driving. And not that I don't appreciate trying to draw them into the fold, but just look at what happens to parents when their kids start driving. Insurance rates double and sometimes triple. And so there's a lot of vulnerability there. So I have some very strong concerns about our self-insurance being on the line after.
Yeah,
after
I
$1
don't,
million.
I mean, if correct me maybe if I'm wrong, but if we're a member of a car share organization, the city, and we use that vehicle, it's not our vehicle. If someone else is using that vehicle outside of the times that we've agreed to use it, it wouldn't be our car, it wouldn't be our liability.
Well,
Yeah.
who owns the vehicle?
It would be the car share company owns the vehicle. We
Well,
wouldn't own the vehicle.
All right, but if, yeah, I don't know
Well,
what
these
the,
are questions.
yeah,
that-
those
Yeah,
are-
I think the insurance is a
Question.
key issue. I mean, it's also the cost versus our current insurance versus this other kind of insurance.
and I'd also
so.
be concerned about what one does about, even though you have rules they aren't supposed to, the same is true with rental cars, about people smoking in the cars, because that can discourage anybody from wanting to use it subsequently.
Yeah, we'd have to follow the rules of the car share organization, and it's their car, so.
When it comes to picking a car, my wife always says, no, don't go with Avis, because the Avis cars always smell like smoke. They don't enforce the rules very well. City Car Share has a very high fine for smoking in the vehicles. Smoking is not prohibited. Cars, other than guide dogs, other than service animals, are not allowed in the cars, and that's something we watch out for a lot. The cars don't smell like cleaning chemicals, which is often what a rental car does smell like.
But let me ask you, on a given day, let's say a particular car was reserved 3 times in the same day.
Yes.
How does Car Share know who smoked in the car if someone did?
Sometimes that's a detective job. And car sharing is sharing. So if you take a car, it's your responsibility as the member to return that car on time. And if the gas is low, you fill it yourself, because there's no one who visits the car in between you and the next person. So that's the fundamental characteristic of it. And that's what it's about. And so the people who don't share well, and it's not a huge number, eventually aren't members of the car share.
Any other comments? John?
Yeah, my comment is, we heard earlier that the goal is to roll this out citywide in about 2 years. And so I'm worried that we might benefit by having it citywide from the beginning and being able to generate public relations benefit by saying, look, we are a car share city. We have car share throughout the city, and you can find a car share car throughout the city. I think that there would be, in other words, let's think about it as like a product. If their product is being launched, it's typical that there's saturation. Now, obviously, a company that's putting out some sort of product has a great deal of capital behind that, so I don't know what this would cost. But the theory is that you need to grab that market share from the beginning, and the strategy of building up is not the winning strategy. You need to create buzz, and so you need to go with a big impact at the beginning. So that's my comment, and whether there's some way that we can do that, and whether there's benefit to that. I worry that the strategy of going with one pod and then with another and then another, it doesn't get going. It doesn't.
Well, Peter, we haven't had from you an estimated cost for the Grand Slam program as opposed to the pod creating another pod, which it sounds like Wendy's program is going to do. So before we consider anything like that, you have to look at what would be the dollar cost for the Grand Slam as opposed to the pod by pod.
Right.
And if the TMG board moves forward with this program, it's going to give us certainly a pretty good vision of whether it will be working in the city or not, and we could observe that very closely. But we need some numbers, Peter.
Well,
I
it is,
think.
yeah, it is $1,600 a month is roughly per car is what it costs if no one else were to use that car besides, us or for each car, basically. So if you're going to subsidize 5 cars, it would be 5 times $1,600, per month. And then hopefully you get people using them, and then that cost would go down as people start using them. So that's roughly what your cost is. If you could do that for 1 year, and you could do 5 times $1,600 for 1 year, and that would be your cost to do 5 cars around the city for a year.
I mean,
The minimum or the maximum
in a way,
cost.
I'm actually not. See, I'm not saying that this is the way to go. I'm just asking, from a marketing perspective. Now, I would like to hear from someone who's gone to business school and knows marketing and says, yeah, you don't, the cost, crunching the numbers, the cost, it's more cost effective to go one pod and then make that one profitable, and then it starts spilling over, and then you do a second one, or is it better to, and I agree that the cost is a big part of it, but the only analogy I can think of is critical mass. You need to have so much critical mass to get a nuclear reaction going, and if you don't have it, it just fizzles out. And so I just feel like we would get a lot of impact by saying to media organizations, this is a city that has car share within 5 minutes walk of anywhere in the city. I just think that it would be powerful. So those are my thoughts. Of course, I think it's a great idea. Just.
Well, I think we're all very supportive of car sharing. Where you get into difficulty is how are we going to implement this within the resources and the funds that we have.
Right.
Ken?
I guess I was kind of agreeing with John. If you don't make a good upfront effort to get enough cars out there, then the participation will be limited. So,
Well, fortunately, hopefully, Wendy will be doing a pre-marketing survey with her marketing to see what kind of true interest is out there. So within the next 3 to 6 months, hopefully Wendy will share this information with us, and we'd have a better basis to move forward with what we're doing.
is there some way to provide some incentive for someone who may not be familiar with it? Maybe they can use a car for free for a couple of days, or some way to get people familiar with it, because unless they're familiar with it.
I looked at the various companies and how they charge, and basically some of the companies provide a lower monthly fee, and then you pay, or no, you pay less per month. You pay more per month, and then you pay more per month, and then the incremental cost, whether it's by hour or by a mile, is lower. And so it's what is it similar to? I can't think of what it's similar to, but in other words, if you're a low volume user, then you'll pay, for example, more per mile. You'll sign up with a particular category. You are a bronze member or something, and you are paying 15 cents a mile. and if you pay more, then you can get a better rate on the mileage. So
Can we, rather than getting
yeah,
into
right.
the
Yeah,
details now, can we agree to benefit from Wendy's experiments and
Yeah.
use the TMA's money to gather the information and then move forward?
But if I could just make one comment, too. I understand what you're saying, John, about the critical mass. I think this is going to be a very expensive program, and I think it works best in dense areas, and I don't think we're a dense area. There's a lot of challenges to make this working in Emeryville. We're 0 for 3 so far, and I don't know how much money I'd be willing to vote to go up front in the hope that that big first burst makes this a successful program. So, I just think back to the experience of the Emery ground itself. We started small and added and built, and it worked, and I'd rather start something that's well thought out, not overextending ourselves funding-wise, and build on it. I think we've got a better chance to make it successful. But I'm willing to listen to what the numbers are and what the recommendations are, and we'll see where we go.
I did have one final question as a policy. What about the issue of requiring new developments to provide for car share pods? Or currently, I think, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, do we still have the policy about the electric car charging stations as a condition of approval?
It's in our standard conditions, and most major projects have that condition.
So this would be kind of an analogous, to that as an alternative form of transportation that larger projects have to.
I mean,
Well,
for-
Peter,
I'm concerned about that because Bryce was saying the best way for new developments best way for car share to work is when it's visible from the sidewalk, and yet all we seem to be building are these gated communities with parking garages that you have to go into. So.
Well, we could look at the standard from San Francisco that talk about if it's going to be they have requirements about it being available to the public, even if it's within, so you have to figure out how it's going to work. Maybe it would be on the street next to the community in a designated spot that the city would provide, but maybe they would help fund, the new development could help fund, for example, part of the cost, for example, for a year or something like that.
I would ask the support of the council that we take this question to the Planning Commission and have this is what they do. Take this question on the car share requirement to the Planning Commission and ask them to give their advice back to us. How's that sit with everybody? Do you
Let
have
me just
anything else,
comment.
Bryce?
Dick, you were mentioning the idea of, well, we're not dense enough, and I kind of agree, but it gets back to what I think is a fundamental question. That's the chicken and egg problem, and so I continually hear the argument, well, we're not ready to do unbundled parking, we're not ready to do this because we don't have enough public transit, we don't have enough car share, we don't have enough of this, and I say, well, that's because we need to do that, and I don't know who better to do it than for government to do that, because the private entities have a free rider problem, essentially. So, but I do hear you with the cost, and like I said, I'm very cognizant of the cost. But I want us to try and crack this nub of the chicken and egg problem, and the way
Okay,
that I would
John.
do that is to jumpstart seed money.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Charlie?
On your direction to refer this to the Planning Commission for their advice, you have on your regular agenda tonight a contract for a consultant to do a comprehensive study of parking policies. And I think this is directly related to that. Part of that study will result in suggested zoning ordinance amendments. So rather than refer this separately to the Planning Commission, I would suggest that this be folded in as a part of that effort.
Very good. As long as we don't lose it in all the paperwork.
We won't.
Very good. Bryce, thank you so much.
And I'd like to respond, Dick, on the density question. Emeryville, I think it's a little hard to get good density numbers. I maybe need some help, but I believe that Emeryville is around 4 to 5 times more dense than a number of locations where city car share alone is able to be a success. On the map here is the BART line, and there's North Berkeley Station is the dot in the lower half, and in the upper left half is El Cerrito Plaza Station, a location that supports 2 car shares It's a very profitable location. It makes money. Not all of city car share locations make money. We're a nonprofit after all. That one makes money at 2 cars with, I'd say, a fifth the density overall of Emeryville.
Good, okay,
So
thanks.
it's not density, it's walkability.
Thank you, Bryce.
And thank you.
This special session is closed. We'll open up both the Emeryville City Council meeting and the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency meeting. And will you call the roll, please?
Agency Member and Councilmember Bukowski.
Here.
Agency Member and Councilmember Fricke.
Here.
Agency Member and Councilmember Cassis.
Here.
Vice Chair and Mayor Atkin.
Present.
Chair and Mayor Davis.
Present. Okay, will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are no special orders of the day. Are there any public comments?
Maybe we need to give Bryce just a second to,
Help him out here, Peter.
And I have copies of the presentation if anyone's interested. Just come see me and I'll give you a copy.
and I just, as Leslie's coming up, I'd just like to ask, maybe it's just my
Thanks for that,
ears
by the way,
are getting
Bryce.
old, but
Very good.
I know that a lot of what's going on with the microphones is to broadcast this for the people watching at home. I get the sense we're not having enough amplification in this room. I could hardly hear Wendy speak during that time. So I don't know if we have to crank up the inner room broadcast or not, but I'd appreciate if we could try to do that, 'cause it doesn't make sense for people to come if they can't hear. And Maurice, could you go ahead and grab that sign-in sheet now that Leslie signed in and have it on the corner of your desk so that people can sign in after they speak? Thank you, sir.
Mayor and City Council members, can you hear me? My name is Leslie Pollard, as most of you know. I was a planning technician in the planning department and also the union chapter president for now SEIU Local 1021. Gosh, I've been waiting on this moment. I'm sorry.
Speak up, please, speak up.
I'm trying. I think it's the amplifier.
Is the handheld mic better to use? Is that going to broadcast better?
I am
Speak
talking
louder.
now. Trust me. I'm going to put my mouth on here.
Leslie, you want to try the cordless mic?
Can you hear me? Okay, then I'll use this one. Okay, I'll do my best. It's good to be back for a minute at least. As most of you know, back in 2004, September 2004, I was taken off from work, escorted out of the building, and was not allowed to return until this year, January 16th, 2007. And what I'd like to say just briefly is that I've worked in Emeryville now, I had up until March 6th, for almost 30 years. June would be 30 years. And I worked at the Senior Center, at the for redevelopment agency, as well as for planning, kind of worked my way up the ladder till I got to be a planning technician. Put a lot of years in as planning technician, worked extremely hard. I was pretty much was raised here in Emeryville and went to school here. So my roots are really in Emeryville. And so being able to be a planner in Emeryville was a great thing. It's a great city. But what brings me here tonight is several things. One, back in 2005, February of 2005 actually, there were about 25 to 30 people who appeared before this board and requested them to look into a situation. And that situation was the fact that I had been taken off for psychological fitness for duty because I had filed a complaint against a Caucasian coworker, and the person started retaliating against me physically, to the point where, as I complained to the HR director, to my supervisor, Charles Bryant, no one did anything. No one, I guess they thought it wasn't serious, so they let it continue, and it escalated. So at some point, as I continued to email, I began to notice that they weren't taking it seriously. So I went to Berkeley Police. They told me to file a complaint. I called my supervisor out of courtesy, HR director out of courtesy, to let them know that I was going to be seeking help from outside. Courteous, being nice. Well, that was turned into a threat. And that being turned into a threat meant that some action had to be taken. So the next day, I went to the police department, filed a police report to stop the harassment. And upon my return to work on September 17th, I was called into the city manager's office and was given a letter. The letter said that I was going for psychological evaluation. Not knowing what it was for, I asked why. What did I do? Mr. Biddle was present, and Mr. Flores was present. Excuse me. Neither one of them would tell me. So I was escorted. I appeared with Erica Broyard, who's here tonight, and she's a witness to everything that had occurred. So I left. There it is. I was told then the city attorney escorted me back to my desk, escorted me to and from my car at least 3 times, not only in front of the co-worker who I'd accused
Pardon me,
of
Ms.
discriminating.
Pollard, your 5 minutes is up.
That was 5 minutes. I spent most of it trying to get the microphone to work. Anyone wants to sign in? And
Well, I would ask that we waive the 5 minutes tonight. Leslie's been here a very long time, and as long as you keep this in reason.
appreciate that, Dick.
If you start getting up to 10 or 15, then we'll be hollering.
Thing. Okay, I'll do my best. Okay. So anyway, after that, I was escorted back to my desk in and out of the building in front of not only the accused employee, but also in front of the public and in front of my coworkers. And I don't know how to explain what that felt like. I can't tell you when you dedicate 27 and a half years to a job and to be treated like that, what that does to you. And then not only to be treated like that, to not know why you're being escorted out of the building, not know why you're going for an evaluation, not knowing if it's a physical or psychological evaluation, and then appear before the doctor who doesn't know if it's a psychological, physical evaluation, and I don't find out till I leave. And then, and only then, did I know that I was being accused of making a threat. Then, and only then, 2 weeks later, was I sent to a psychologist who then determined that I had a personality disorder after 1 2.5-hour visit and one test in which I sat there all day from 9 to 5, completing one test and being interviewed for nothing, to have him label me with a personality disorder. That personality disorder was then used to terminate me because the city said, we can't accommodate you. I get letters telling me that, Leslie, you got a serious medical condition after 6 weeks after seeing a psychiatrist. Oh, really? What is it? We can't tell you. For 3 months, I walked around not knowing what it was. Then I get a letter of intent to terminate. And I'm not going to go into the details of what happened in between there because a lot of other things occurred. But then I get a letter of intent to terminate. And that's when we came before this city council and pleaded. There's people in this room that came that day and pleaded that the city council take a look at what was going on. For the city council to go back and investigate. For the city council to talk to the people who were taking this action against me and find out why. But not only should you have done that, all of you, most of you, know me. I've helped you. I've represented and helped you get elected. I've helped Ken get elected. Nora certainly has requested, maybe hasn't been granted it, and I don't know if there's a bitterness there or not, but certainly she asked. And Ruth. And I want to say with Ruth, you contacted me, and you asked me before we left the other building, I believe, Leslie, I'm running for office. I heard about your situation, and I was excited. Hey, we got a council member that's excited about my situation. But then when the request came in from staff to change my job title and downgrade it, to make all these changes, Ruth wasn't there. Ruth was voting against it. Ruth never came to me. Ruth never asked. And that isn't what happened, Ruth. I was at your home. We worked hard together. And I say this because you all knew me. Dick knew me. Dick and I walked the precincts. He heard me defend some of the things that was being said. And I think you had a little respect for me because you made sure that I maybe got on a board or something. I believe you had something to do with that. So you knew me. So when someone came to you and said, there's something wrong with her, the only one that I can stand here and say that stood up and said anything about it was Kim Bukowski. Why are you changing her job title? Well, this doesn't make any sense. Only Kim Bukowski. Why? He's interested in knowing, he knows what's going to happen. You keep messing with me, I'm going to have to do what? You file complaints. Because why? Because you're wrong. But he also knows me as an individual. He also knows the type of person I am. And he's the only one that was willing to stand up and say against this whole entire board, I don't think this is right. We're going down the wrong road. So in 2005, when you all heard that, I don't know how many of you went to management and said, let's do something. But because you didn't, it forced me to get a lawyer. That's another $1.3 million. It forced me to file a grievance. It forced me to do a whole bunch of other things I normally wouldn't have done because nobody cared. Nobody stepped up to the plate, supported Kim Bukowski, and looked into this matter, which sent the message to me that how many of you were in on it? I mean, you have to take a look back. There's only two things it can be. You're either naive, and I don't believe any of you are naive, or you wouldn't have been elected, or you're in on it. Or you just think management has a good reason because this is a problem employee, she's African American, she don't fit. But whatever the case might be, you were wrong for not looking into this because it's these taxpayers who's going to pay the cost. Not you, not you, not you, not you, and not you. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that coming to you before this board and saying to you, look, we got a problem here, they're about to fire me, do something, that somebody should have stepped up to the plate and did something. The other thing I really want to touch on, and I think this is extremely important because I know this city so well. That's a good thing about having been raised here and been part of the political process and being a union steward and an officer is race discrimination. People don't want to hear that anymore. People, race, that's all black people say is race, race, race. Well, you know what? I'm here to tell you right now, I said it. And I said it because I could back it up. Because I've been keeping records since 1990, when I became a subject of race discrimination and had to file a complaint. And it was only then that I started thinking, you know what, there's something wrong here. And a facilitator said, as a demographics change that you hired, as a demographics change, Emeryville will find the need to change with it. And you know what, I'm standing here today and telling you Emeryville is changing with it. And you all are making sure it happens. because staff can't do anything without your approval, or staff doesn't do it unless you've ordered it. But let me just give you a couple examples of race discrimination that I'm referring to. We have an African-American female who lost her sister. And then when she lost her sister, no flowers were sent to her. No card was passed around for her. Very emotional time. When her co-worker lost her mother, the secretary had to pass around a card for her. And guess what? She got flowers. Now, another example. A gentleman's been here for 6 years, well-known, well-respected, even here tonight, hopefully. This person served in a position as manager, did everything for the city, applied for a job to be promoted. Couldn't get a 15-minute interview. A 15-minute interview. But he was able and required or forced to sit on the panel and assess the people, the candidates that applied for the job. But he wasn't good enough to give the answers. Another example. I'm going to give you 4 of them. There's 2 more to go now. Almost been done. Another example. Gentleman's been here 16 years, 16 at least. None of these have anything to do with me. We don't have time for that. But this gentleman here has been for 16 years, at least. Applied for a crew chief job. Now, he's low-key on this. Upset, but low-key. Not complaining a lot, but upset. He's been a crew chief before. He's done the work. Good worker. Someone else applies for the job, a Caucasian, been here a year and a half. Never been a crew chief before, never been maintenance before. This is his first time on the job. He's getting his experience right here in Emeryville. 3 of them, goes down to the wire. Guess what? Guess who got the job? Guess who got the job? The Caucasian, right? Last example. There's a gentleman that worked in one of the departments who I know is not here tonight. Very ambitious, very professional, hard worker, wanted to be promoted to code enforcement. He couldn't be a code enforcement because we put those requirements on there where you can't be code enforcement unless you have a degree. But he went to another city where now he's a code enforcement specialist, and he don't have to have a degree. But those requirements sometimes are able to keep some of the people who've been in the job a little longer. They can't get the job. Well, this person here applied for, went into a supervisor's office. I'm with him as a steward, and made a comment because they harassed me. He had 3 grievances filed for race discrimination on the song and dance. And he said, you're docking my pay, and you're going to regret that one day because I'm going to file a grievance. I witnessed him saying he was going to file a grievance. The supervisor and him said, "What'd you say?" I said, I'm going to file a grievance. Supervisor waited 3 weeks, and then he decided, I'm going to get you. So what does he do? He made a threat. He made a threat. So he was subjected to a 3-month investigation. He got fed up, and guess what he did? He left. And I give these, there are so many examples that I plan. I'm actually preparing some documents. I actually wanted to have it for you tonight. You'd be overwhelmed, or certainly the public should be, because I can tell you, majority of these people could be down at Department of Fair Employment, at EEOC, and filing complaints. And they're not doing that. They're hoping that the city council will step back and take a look at what is going on in this city and start to make a change, starting with management. Starting with management. Or maybe the change needs to start with city council. Because if it continues, something's got to be done. And what I'm going to say about these issues, all these things, is that these people are deserving. They're not looking for a handout. This is not something that people are just feeling like you owe me because I've been here for 15 years or 10 years. These people deserve this. I deserve to be more than a planning technician. I know that. I did the work. I surveyed every city. I knew I deserved to be more than a planning technician, but I was willing to sacrifice that. I fought, but I sacrificed. And so are these people. But I think people are getting tired. And people like myself who now think, still you all have freed me up, that I hope I can help so many people out here that want and need and deserve what they're not getting. And my last area, I believe it is my last area, is on the investigations. You have a staff here, you have a city attorney on board, you have a human resources director, and I read in the paper where it said, we have policies in place. We have training. We have all this stuff that's, our people are very well prepared. Then why in the heck am I standing in front of you making this speech? Why in the heck did the city put out almost $4.236 million just on this case, not what happened to me before, another million there almost? For what? How do you explain that to your people? How do you explain that to your constituents, to the citizens of Emeryville? How do you explain it? Why? There's a procedures. You're absolutely right. I agree. There's procedures. There's personnel rules and regs. There's harassment policies. There's violence in the workplace, something that they never used on me. They just escorted me out the door. I didn't have rights. But the city attorney was in those meetings. He was a part of them. He was part of the discussions. Where was the advice he was supposed to provide to staff that, look, we can't do this? They didn't even take notes when they took me off. The chief called the city manager and said, Leslie came down and filed a police report. That was supposed to have been the threat. At least that's what Mr. Flores said. I said I filed a police report. One ear and out the other. But Mr. Biddle was in them meetings, and he knew I filed a police report, and he knew it before I left this building. And he certainly knew it before I went to the doctor. The HR director knew it. The message you sent to that coworker who wasn't disciplined, who wasn't talked to, who was drawing pictures and posting them, you can't ask for anyone else to do something about a person who depicts African Americans with big lips and squiggly hair, and you take it and you post it up on the desk so the person that sits there can see it. And you don't do it once, you do it twice. But what does the city, what does the city say? It wasn't offensive. Did you see they didn't see the pictures. All they know is two coworkers saw them. But it wasn't offensive.
Ms. Pollard, could you bring your comments to a conclusion, please?
I'm getting there. So what it said to this coworker is that it's okay to do what you did. So she and anybody else, any employee of the city can go back and post those pictures up on that wall if they want to, and post them all around anywhere. There was no investigations. The HR director never investigated anything. She just determined that I was lying, mischaracterizing the events, exaggerating. And I bring all this to your attention because this is serious. Investigations are serious. The law is not going this way, it's going that way. It's going up. They are insisting that you protect people who complain. The accused, HR director said, I am protecting the accused. Not you, Leslie, the accused. And the city attorney supported it. So I'm going to end on this note, but I'm not at all finished. And when I'm not finished, then that means I have to come back. But nonetheless, I want to just let you know that in all of this, I'm hoping you take note, because it was so hard for me when I was terminated for 2 years. And I certainly didn't get a job. I couldn't get a job because I had termination on my record. And I had to sink and swim the best way I could, and I did that. And I want to applaud Mr. Bukowski, because he made all of you look bad. He did. And that's a man, when I have to say that anybody that is willing to stand up against his colleagues, knowing that he might not get that vote on that next project because he just he crossed the line, should be applauded because he did so, and you should have all listened to him. So I hope to come back one day. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Millie Cleveland. I'm the Union Field representative for the SEIU Emeryville chapter. I know Leslie spoke a long time, but after being out of work for 2 years and no pay, I think the city of Emeryville could give her 15 minutes. What I want to say to the city and to the people that are watching this television program is that when a city pays or settles with an extraordinary amount of money, it's a red flag. It's a very serious red flag that something is going wrong in your city, and you guys are the overseers for this city. Serious errors were made in the legal department. Serious errors were made by human resources. And it's interesting, during the arbitration, I don't know if you know it, but you paid for a violence prevention expert that was flown up here from San Diego, paid by the city of Emeryville, who agreed with the union in the arbitration. Our union attorney literally walked him through the entire scenario, asking him, how do you feel about this step? How do you feel about that step? And your paid expert said, I wouldn't do it like that. No, that was wrong. That came from your paid expert. I don't know if that was shared for you. I encourage you to get the transcripts from the arbitration. If there's any obstacle, please contact me. I'll provide them for you. Okay, now, what's also very important is to let you know that these inequities are not just here in City Hall. We have a particular problem in the Child Development Center, which is another area of predominantly women of color who are seriously overworked, very underpaid. They are so understaffed over there that they are harassed just for taking a day off because they're sick. They're vulnerable to illnesses because little kids come in with runny noses and pink eye and diarrhea and all that kind of stuff, and they are most susceptible to illnesses, and they don't have enough staff over there. The food service workers are oppressed. They do not have enough staff to cover for the children over there. And so the inequities in this city are broader than just City Hall. We're going to have a serious problem correcting it if we don't correct the problems at the Child Development Center. And I say that now as we go into contract negotiations, as our contract expires at the end of June. Fixing the inequities in the Child Development Center is going to be a priority for the union. I want to make that very clear to not only the workers, but this is a very valuable asset that you have in the city. I mean, to have a child development center that has infants and toddlers, there are a lot of working mothers around here that consider that center very valuable. But you need to treat the workers that take care of those children as valuable as you do the potential taxes that you might get out of Pixar. Our people are human beings. They provide a valuable service. They need to be respected. They should be treated with dignity, and they deserve the benefits that go along with that. So thank you for your time. I need you to understand that the inequities are not just in City Hall, that we have problems that Leslie has just begun to unfold, and I hope that there's some introspection on your part with the legal errors and the human resource department errors that led you to pay millions of dollars. You need to stop looking at the employees and look at the people that you hire in those positions, particularly management.
Ma'am, did you sign in over here? Over to your right.
Is it possible to make a comment here, or?
Could we allow the public to comment, Ken?
My name is Brian Downey. I live at 4333 Holden Street, and 25-year resident. So I've listened to what was just said here by Ms. Pollard and it's outrageous. And so Mr. Flores, the city manager, is gone, so we can't say anything to him. But Mr. Biddle, the city attorney, still employed here by the city. And so regarding Mr. Biddle's culpability in this matter, I'd like to say, Biddy, you're doing a heck of a job. Now, I calculated the amount of money here. It's $4.6 million that the city of Emeryville is paying for this fiasco. And so on the way over here, I have a calculator. It's over $650 for every man, woman, and child in Emeryville. So I think of like all the civic projects that we need to do that we're now not going to be able to do. This is an outrage. And so I think the amount of ineptitude and incompetence by the management is just an outrage, and I don't even know. I'm just speechless, almost speechless about this. And I think it's time for Mr. Biddle to step down, frankly.
Is there any other public comment?
Well, I think that everyone here
Pardon me,
agrees.
could you identify yourself, please?
Valerie Savage. I think that everyone here agrees that the issues here that people have addressed are very serious matters. And I'm just going to quickly ask if there's anyone here that has lost their job, been harassed, singled out, or falsely disciplined by the city to please stand. Thank you very much. I hope that you guys take a good look at this, because this is not nearly half of the people that have been affected in this manner by the city. And the public should be really just outraged. Over 30 people over the past few years have come before you to talk to you about the unfair treatment of employees in this city. I came with other taxpayers in 2005 to plead with you regarding these issues, as well as the issue with Leslie Pollard. And apparently, you guys didn't look into it and didn't take it seriously, because she turned out to be terminated. So, which of course you know that these terms were founded to be unfounded. And I would really like to know what you guys plan to do to stop, this type of practices. It's really just absurd. This is a small city, but you have such a big racial problem and such a big problem with discrimination. It's really, it makes me very upset. You put up traffic lights, and you have these new cameras that are out to stop people so they can pay attention to the signs, but yet you've had signs for years, and you have not stopped, and you haven't paid attention. What is that saying? And also, the last time I was here, I witnessed how you guys responded to the alleged racial allegations of the Woodfin Hotel and what's going on with their employees. And yet, you can sit on your board and have all of this going on within your own city. There's a saying that says, how are you going to pull out the speck in somebody else's eye when you have a plank in your own? You guys have things that are happening in your own house. You need to do house cleaning in your own house. And I'm really wondering if with all of this going on in Emeryville, if you guys have reviewed any documents, if you guys have talked to anybody, because I'm just so outraged. I personally don't think that you guys are fit, with the exception of Kim Bukowski that Leslie has pointed out. And, I'm hoping that you guys do something about this, that you set up some type of diversity investigation. I know myself and other taxpayers are going to hold you guys accountable that this needs to be investigated. And we'll make sure that this problem gets investigated. Because this is a public problem. And, you know, it's time out for backdoor politics. You guys are wasting taxpayers' money, and this is just senseless. And Leslie Pollard's issue is a prime example. And I personally think that you guys should just be ashamed of yourself. If Bob Savage was here, or even if he wasn't, he'd probably be turning over in his grave if he knew what was going on. You know, he didn't stand for this kind of stuff in Emeryville. He wanted this to be a place for all people, where they're comfortable, where they're happy, where it's a place they can enjoy to live and to work and to play, to shop. And, you know, he wanted this to be a place for all people. And you guys, many of you knew him very well. And it's really sad, because I know that if he was here today, this would not be happening. This would not be. Excuse me. So I think that it's definitely time for change in Emeryville. It's time to end the backdoor politics that take place in Emeryville. We live in a democratic society, and yet in the city of Emeryville, the voters do not go to the voting poll and elect a mayor, and it is 2007. I don't understand that. It's time for change in Emeryville. You know, and the taxpayers should just
Pardon
be
me, could you bring your
flabbergasted.
comments to a close?
I will bring my comments to a close.
Thank you.
It's time for change in Emeryville. I came to this city over 15 years ago. Many of you are still here. I think that you've gotten comfortable in your seats. You've gotten comfortable in your ways, and it's time for things to change here. And, you know, it scares me that I'm thinking that you guys have gotten
Ms.
so
Savage,
comfortable.
your time's up. Thank you. Your time's up,
you.
Ms. Savage.
He's going to give me his time. Thank you. As I was saying, I think that you guys have been on this board so long that you've gotten comfortable in your positions, and that you no longer have regard for the employees and the citizens of this community. Many people, you guys, the city is just rebuilding and building up, so many taxpayers in this community do not know what's going on, and it's time that they know what's going on. And I personally, along with other taxpayers, am going to be a person to definitely fight for change in Emeryville.
Good evening. I'm Alan Jackson. I am the president of the Berkeley branch of the NAACP. And our organization, of course, is one of the oldest civil rights organizations in America. Perhaps some of you think that our organization is dormant and inactive, but I came by tonight to let you know that we are very much alive and we're very active. And we want to do things right and nice, but sometimes things get out of hand. We don't want that to happen, but if we have to bring folk in to dramatize or demonstrate our position, then we may have to do that. And I'm not coming to you, bringing to you any idle threats or anything of that nature. We have to deal with the fact that change is inevitable, and sometimes we think that we can suppress or stifle progress of any minority, African Americans in particular. But I think that we all should know that it's a new day, and that we're going to be very vigilant in trying to make sure that change occurs in a positive manner. And I trust that you all will use your prudence and to make these things happen so that we won't have to have, you know, a little Emeryville that stands out as being a city that's racist and a city that denies opportunities to all of its citizens and the communities around. And as I said, I'm from Berkeley, and the Berkeley NAACP joins with the citizens of Emeryville because it's a small city, all right? So we're coalescing, and if necessary, we can go to Oakland and Richmond, and we can bring the troops in, but we want you to do what's right. God bless you.
Is there any other public comment?
Sir, did you sign in? Oh, that's right, I said, thank you.
Hi, my name is
No, you got it.
my name is Ken Robinson. I am currently an employee in the Public Works Department. Most of you have, over the years, seen me out in the streets. I'm one of the guys that does the dirty work.
You lift the mic.
Thank you. I'm also one of the people that Leslie was talking about. I started here roughly 16, 17 years ago. I was young at the time, naive, learning new things. This was probably the best job that I ever received at that time. I'd like to really thank the council and the management for the vision that they've had for the city, because when I came in, the city literally was nothing but empty buildings, and I was told that they were on the fast track to develop into one of the major cities around here and be an intricate part of this corridor. And I did not realize until growing up with the city the things that it has become, and it really is a beautiful city. With that being said, amongst us African Americans, there's little secrets, little whispers. We talk amongst ourselves about some of the unfair treatment that goes on here. I'm kind of a quiet person by nature. I'm not going to do the finger pointing. I'm not into that. I'm more or less interested in resolution. I'm here today to support Leslie. Leslie has been a good friend of mine. She has been in my corner ever since before I even became a permanent member. When I first started, it was a little different than most people. I started out as a temporary, which lasted about 1.5 years. And she was an intricate part of getting me on permanent. I can remember the days when I went home to my parents and said, I finally got my chance. I finally received a chance to, better myself. I've not only watched the city grow, but I've grown with the city. I started in my mid to early 20s, and now I'm in my 40s. When you grow with someone and you watch the things that have happened positive, you like to feel that you've been a part of that. I do feel a part of that. But sometimes I don't feel that the city has acknowledged it. You get your data boys, you get your pats on the back, but when you apply for a promotional position, not once, twice, 3 times, but 4 times, and be denied, then you sometimes question whether or not so much yourself, but whether or not the city really wants you. You know, you question whether or not those pats on the back were really meaning or were they false. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time up here. I just want you guys to know that, you know, I'm here. I had my supervisor during a evaluation meeting. He questioned whether or not maybe I felt this was the best place for me. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I spent a long time in this city and I watched it grow. And I continue, and I'm going to continue on being a part of it. It's just about respect, really. It's about feeling appreciated, not just as an Afro-American, but as a person. And I hope you guys really just think about some of the things that are said tonight. You will see me again, and you definitely will see me on the streets. Those are my job. It's helped me. It's helped my family. I'm a very proud person, and I thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? If not, we'll move on to the
You going to give me a minute to speak after this, or?
Well, you have a chance to speak down under 8B.
Yeah, I know. Well, then everybody will be gone.
Oh,
So.
all right.
Just be a minute. How's everybody? My name is Craig Chandler. I'm Information Systems Coordinator, City of Pleasant Hill. Former employee here. I worked here for 6 years. I was the person Leslie mentioned that worked here for 6 years, applied for a manager's position, and didn't even get an interview. It was real disappointing because I felt I held the information systems department here together for about 3 years without a lot of help. So I was very disappointed when I didn't get an interview. I'm at Pleasant Hill now. I'm asked every day, you know, how do I like it there? And I'm told every day that they really appreciate me being there. Of all the things I've done here, even looking around and looking at some of the stuff, even my hands on this podium, I hope put this in here. Wire up this mic, work on that equipment in there. Not getting an interview just told me how much I wasn't appreciated here. Just being here the last few months I was here just made my life miserable. Just having to come here every day, going through the interview process of interviewing people and asking them questions that I know I can answer and them not answering them. And then seeing, you know, them get a, you know, one of those persons get the job that I felt I've been doing for the last 3 years. It's just real disappointing. So I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time. I'm happy now. Pleasant Hill appreciates me. So just one question here. Nothing against any of the people who have had the opportunity, but I've seen this city bend over backwards to give people opportunities. making people temporary department heads, temporary managers. I was never given that opportunity. I went to the city manager, I went to my department head, never given that opportunity. They brought in contractors, people from other cities, everything else, but when you bring in someone that's supposed to be a manager here for 1 day a week, can they really manage a department? So who's really managing it? Things like that. My job closes on the 23rd. I'm very curious to see how the hiring process goes for that job, and I plan to actually keep in touch and find out. So that's all I have to say.
Is there any other public comment? Councilmember Bukowski.
I want to say, I really want to thank Leslie for coming here and bringing these matters to our attention. It shows that she really cares about this city. She could go off with the money if she wanted, but that's not where she's at, and I know that. The other thing that I think is outrageous is that I asked for a copy of the transcript of this matter because I wanted to investigate it, and I was refused that document. I was asked to make a decision to give away millions of dollars, and I could not have the document necessary to find it out. I still can't get a copy of it. The city attorney has refused it. He asked the members of this council to deny me a copy of this document when I was 15 minutes late for a meeting. I didn't even have a chance to tell or talk to the members of the council about it, and they refused to put it on the agenda, so I can't even discuss it with my colleagues. That's the kind of treatment that I got. And I've been treated that way a long time ago, and Leslie and I were comparing notes on that. It's really an unfortunate day for the city here, but I hope we can change things, and I will work to change this process. I've introduced an idea to change the grievance process so the council even has the opportunity to look at these matters before they go to binding arbitration. We at least deserve the opportunity to find out what the risks are before we go forward to a binding matter in the courtroom. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion? Pardon me. Do I hear a motion on the consent calendar?
Move approval.
Do I hear a second? Is there any objection to the consent calendar? The motion passes unanimously. The next item is a public hearing, which is a joint item with the City Council Agenda Item 6A. This is a resolution.
Oh, you're on city council, Nora?
No, well, I'm going down
Gotcha, the correlation with it. Gotcha.
Okay, but, okay. This is a resolution of the redevelopment agency approving an agreement relating to the purchase and sale of property, defeasance of bonds, and termination and amendment of agreements between the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency and Emery Bay 2 Associates, LP, for property located at 6401 Shellmound Street. And this is in conjunction with the City Council Agenda 6A. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chair Davis and agency board members. This item concerns the proposed...
Pardon me. Ask him to go downstairs, please. Or close the doors.
The item concerns the proposed sale of Emery Bay Club and Apartments Phase 2. The project owners, TMG Partners and Bridge Housing Corporation, which formed a limited partnership to develop the project, Emery Bay 2 Associates, approached agency staff last summer with a proposal to buy out the agency's ground lease on which the project's located, and then sell the project in its entirety to a third party. In 1991, Emery Bay 2 entered a 75-year parcel lease with the agency, as well as several other agreements relating to the agency's loan of multifamily housing bonds that financed a portion of the project. The ground lease provides that 20% of the total 260 units in the project are reserved for very low-income households, and this requirement is also codified in the regulatory agreement although the termination date in the agreement is the end of the qualified project period, which is defined by the bonds. It's year 2020. A housing assistance pledge agreement, which secures the bonds, also provides for the owner to provide an additional 20% of the units at low income if it was economically feasible. These are called the additional affordable units in the loan documents. So overall, 40% of the units are reserved for very low and low income households. In 1998, the project was refinanced and all these documents were amended at that time. The ground lease parcel is comprised of 2 parcels that the agency acquired in the late 80s and in 1991, and these are shown in your attachment 1. Emery Bay 2 would like to simplify the ownership structure on the project to sell the project and has offered $5.7 million of the sales proceeds to the agency for the purchase of the ground lease parcel. As is allowed by right in the project loan documents, it's expected that the bonds in the project will be defeased by the subsequent buyer to eliminate certain restrictions connected to that. Defeasement of bonds, in case you're not aware of this, means that the necessary amount of U.S. Treasuries are put into an escrow account that the bond trustee holds, and that pays off the agency loan, but it allows the bondholders to keep receiving their payments.
Does that escrow account earn interest?
We could, and you know, and I have representatives of TMG and Bridge here tonight to sort of answer technical questions on that. Excuse me. Staff's been working with Emery Bay 2 to negotiate terms of the proposed sale of the ground lease parcel and the required amendments that are needed. These terms were presented to the Housing Committee in December, and they recommended them for approval, and the agency board had previously considered this in closed session. I'd like to present the key terms of the agreement, and then tonight Ann Silverberg, as I mentioned, from Bridge, and Scott Burgess, who's the general counsel with TMG Partners, are here. Staff has been told by Emery Bay 2 that they do have a subsequent buyer lined up. They're in due diligence right now. The sale of the ground lease parcel would eliminate the parcel lease and the 75-year term through 2066, but the qualified project period term, which is the 2020 year date, would remain affordable in the current regulatory agreement. Upon Emery Bay 2's sale of the project to the third party, it's anticipated, as I mentioned, that the subsequent buyer will defease the bonds. This results in termination of the Housing Assistance Pledge Agreement, which created those additional affordable low-income units. Thus, the units would no longer be required to be provided as affordable in the project. The agency does not have the authority through the existing loan docs with Emery Bay 2 to prevent the defeasement, and we don't have control over the elimination of these units. The key terms, as I mentioned before, they would pay us $5.7 million. This full payment would go into the low mod housing fund right at close of escrow for future projects. The subsequent buyer would enter into a first amendment to the regulatory agreement, and we've negotiated resetting the clock on the very low-income units for 55 years from the close, which corresponds with the redevelopment law. So it's 42 years beyond that 2020 date. The subsequent buyer would assume certain obligations relating to the additional low-income units, and those are outlined in Exhibit U of the agreement. I handed out, or you should have on your dais, some revisions to some language to clarify the timing of requirements of the subsequent buyer on this, so hopefully you have that. It's pages 11 and 12 of the purchase and sale agreement, and then Exhibit U, the pages 1 and 2 of that. The subsequent buyer will be required to provide 6 months advance notice of the first rent increase from the date that the bonds are defeased, because that's the action that is triggering the elimination of those units. It said close of escrow in the document, so we just corrected that to defeasement. The second is the subsequent buyer will be required to allow extensions on the lease of any unit if the lease expires less than in that 6-month time frame. The subsequent buyer will be required to allow the tenant to terminate his or her lease without penalty. And we've added a clause in there that we would like to get copies of all the communications that they make to the tenants of the low-income units so that the agency understands when they're being notified, so we can be, we have that information because that plays into the displacement plan that we'll follow up on. Finally, in Exhibit V of the agreement are the various repairs that the subsequent buyer is going to be required to perform, some waterproofing and repainting the exterior of the project. When it reviewed the agreement terms in December, the Housing Committee recommended that occupants of the low-income units be granted first priority position in upcoming residential projects, part of our inclusionary program, projects that have designated low-income, below-market rate units for 2 years from the elimination of those affordability covenants. Staff reviewed the city's pipeline, and there's a table in your staff report, and depending on whether some of those projects could potentially be renegotiated, and then there are also some ones that we haven't negotiated yet, there could be potentially enough low-income units to cover the 52 units that are being eliminated. Staff believes there are important positive benefits with the proposed transaction. Obviously, the $5.7 million going into the low-mod housing fund that can be used for units dispersed throughout Emeryville, the extension of the affordability term for the very low-income units. The sale of the project results in the agency's bonding capacity to increase, and then the physical improvement of the building. It's a fairly, it's an old structure at this point and needs some repairs. I can take some questions. Scott Burgess and Ann Silverberg are here at this point. Scott's firm actually prepared the agreements that the city attorney and reviewed, and so kind of detailed questions about that. He's available to answer questions on that.
John, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, Ken, do you have some
Yeah, I had a
questions?
question. Can the low-income occupants of the current building, can they be given a first right of refusal to buy a unit at a below market rate unit?
They're rental units, and the project is staying a rental project.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
it's not converted.
All right.
But they are first in line.
They would be first in line. They would, in our housing ordinance right now, residents of Emeryville have the kind of first priority cut. This would be a subset above that.
Okay.
I mean, they're
Yeah,
already
but
residents of Emeryville.
What's interesting is it's a rental project, but my understanding is there's no income test once you become a tenant. And so if you are a longtime tenant there and you began your tenancy because you qualified because of your income, your low income or moderate income, there's not really an ongoing test of that. But the way that it's rationalized is that it's a rental project, and the person can, with greater income, then qualify or go on the rental market and find another unit. So.
Yeah, I mean, in ownership projects, we income qualify at the beginning, and then we don't income qualify as they continue to live there. But in rental projects, they do an annual certification process.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
For
okay.
rental, it's
I was
different from
wrong.
the kind of initial.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have a couple questions.
Dick, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Amy, I know kind of how our waiting list for first-time home buyers operates, I think, and there are some people that get qualified and then don't make it in the lottery, and I guess they think we give them some kind of priority for the next project. But tell me about the pool relative to people that want to rent that would fit in these categories. You said Emeryville residents come first. Within Emeryville residents, I mean, leaving this out for the moment, within Emeryville residents, haven't we set some priorities, for example, for teachers or public safety employees or?
In our ordinance, we don't have any additional, subset within, the ordinance just reads, residents, Emeryville employees, and then other.
So is that condition that I'm speaking about, I think exists then in the first-time homebuyers program, not necessarily
Yeah,
in the
we
rental
have
program?
some special program, first-time homebuyer assistance for, I think, for teachers and for police and fire. I think we have like 0% down loans,
Right.
up to 20% of the price. It's a deferred payment, silent second loan.
Okay.
But it's not a priority in the lottery that's
Okay.
done when these projects initially market.
Okay, so before we deal with the group that's going to be created by this sale, I'd appreciate if the Housing Committee could take a look at whether we want to create within the Emeryville resident group some additional priorities that maybe mirror those that we have in the homebuyers program for groups like teachers and public safety, and I've suggested in the past that artists be added to that group. But that's a bigger picture thing beyond tonight, and we're just dealing with this group. So going to this group, I totally favor giving priority. I guess the only thing I'd be concerned about is if there's a lot of people that have been on the list for a long time waiting to get a rental project, and I don't have any sense as to how many we might have waiting right now that are all of a sudden going to be bumped way down.
Well, it doesn't quite work that way. We have a very large list of people interested in housing in Emeryville, but it's a notification list that we maintain, and we require developers to send out information on new projects to that list. But there aren't sort of pre-qualified people on that list who would be bumped off from this list. Every project, every new inclusionary project has its own application period
Right.
and application process, and it's a new lottery list for that project.
Okay, and there's nobody that carries over from the old one.
Only that special priority that the council adopted, I think, a year and a half ago, that it's folks who didn't get the unit of their choice, and they were approved for a loan, they get to move
Right.
to the top. But there's some
That's again a
special
buyer's program,
circumstances.
though.
That's a buyer's
Okay,
program.
all right. And I have two other things. The other thing is I had a concern along Ken's line. I recognize that this is a rental project, but we've already had half of this whole project, go through the conversion process. How do we know that that's going to stay there? Because here's the concern, is I would hate to see this sale at which the people that are now affording to live there, if this were to be another conversion follow right on the heels of the last one, that all of a sudden a bunch of people that got, dropped out of the system because of rent increases wouldn't be in those units to exercise the right of first refusal if conversion is really just around the corner. And that concerns me.
Converting to a for sale project?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
It's
think
not
that's...
possible.
What are you saying?
Because of the bonds that are, the restrictions that remain on the project
We'll do what?
prohibit that.
Prohibit what?
Prohibit conversion from
Prohibit it.
rental to
So
sale.
this can't be like Emery Bay 1, that this can't convert to condominiums?
Not for another 55 years.
Really? So there's not a subdivision map already sitting out there on
No,
this?
there is not.
I didn't realize
The whole
that.
project.
Okay, I thought that it was the same as the other. Okay, I'll get to my last area then, and this is probably the most important. When we talked about having this priority group, I had left a message for the city attorney, so I'll ask him the question for all of us to hear. But I would personally, among the group that are going to be bounced out and can't find another place in Emeryville, I would like to give the top priority of these folks coming out of Emery Bay to households with children in Emeryville schools. Out of everybody that gets bumped, I'd like them to be the first priority. And Mike, I understand that legally we can do that.
I think you can. It's really an issue of, the Fair Housing Act, which does have restrictions on preferences, but those are generally preferences that are based on, race, national origin, religion, sex, and then also familial status. And the familial status is when there are restrictions based on the fact that they have children under the age of 18, they're then restricted from housing. But I think what you want to do is provide a preference rather for those who do have children, and so I think we can work something
Okay.
into that.
Well, I know we've got a public hearing thing to go through, but what I would ask at the end of that, I would like to ask my colleagues to first support the idea of creating the priority for the people that are going to get bumped out of this project, but I would like them to also go along with the idea that households with children in Emeryville schools among that group get the highest priority.
What is the scenario of someone being bumped out? What is that scenario?
Well, what I see happening is that rents are going to get raised, and people that have been protected in these low-income units are all of a sudden not going to be protected as the rents go up. And they're going to be looking at leaving Emeryville, because as many as are, the indications are here that are going to be bumped, that are not going to be able to stay, there aren't enough comparable units for them to move to in the city of Emeryville. So we're going to lose.
Comparable rental units.
Pardon me?
Comparable
Right,
rentals.
right.
Okay.
Right.
So if rent is raised, then someone who moves out, the point at which they move out will not necessarily correspond with the point at which, and you're imagining this is a ownership unit that they get preference for. Is it rental?
No,
unit?
rental units.
Okay.
Rental.
So
Yeah.
at the point that they have to move out because rent increases, there's not a rental unit that is an affordable unit. So then, so they would have to move elsewhere, right? And so they get first preference to move back
When the
into
unit opens
Emeryville.
up, if there isn't one at the time, right?
Okay.
Would
What is? Let me just ask the staff. What is the likelihood of that scenario?
I have a question actually too. The way the staff wrote it is that the tenants would get preference in both ownership and rental projects upcoming, not just one or the other. So the question is the likelihood of there being a unit available, or
in other words, if you look at the units that are subject to this change, and then you say, then what is the likelihood that the rents will increase such that among the units that are subject to this change, there are people that qualify for affordable rental units that will see their rents go up prohibitively and cause them to have to move to find another unit that is not as expensive.
I'm assuming that the rents are going to be increased on all of those, the 52 units, to match up with the market, and that's certainly greater than the low-income rents. So I would assume it's going to be a problem for
Okay.
those 52
And so we're confident
households.
that the 52 units are people that qualify for affordable unit.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely.
Okay.
And I think they would like to be able to go into another affordable situation, whether it's rental or owner, if they have the resources.
I would want to expand it to, I forgot, would want to expand it to
Both.
purchasing also,
Okay.
both rental and purchasing. And I'll wait and make that as a motion after we do the public hearing.
Do you have any questions? I don't. I might say we discussed this extensively at the Housing Committee, and the Housing Committee unanimously endorsed it to the council. Michael, can I open the public hearing for both the agency and the city
Yes.
at the same time? All right, the public hearing is open for both the agency and the city. Anybody going to come forward to speak? The public hearing is closed. What is the, would you repeat your request, Dick?
Yes, I would move that we do allow the people that, in the low-income group that are not going to be able to afford to remain as rents go up, that they be placed in a priority group for other affordable housing in the city of Emeryville, and that among those people that, and this is for rental and purchase, and among those people, a super priority, I guess, or the top priority would be to households that have children in the Emeryville schools.
I'd support that. Does everyone support that? Do I hear a motion on the agency resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Can that be incorporated into the resolution? Is that what?
You want your condition into the resolution?
Is there any reason not to do that?
As a whereas or something?
That would be resolved.
As a result.
We can certainly do that. I mean, I think it's in the, is there provisions in the agreement that we talk about?
These provisions for subsequent projects are not in the agreement because it's not really something
an
that's
issue
binding
with
on
them,
them.
correct.
So
we could- yeah, we
it's,
ought to put it
it's
in the
an added
resolution.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second on the agency resolution. Call the roll with the addition of Councilmember Cassis's suggestion. Call the roll, please.
This is both agency and council,
Separately, please.
separately. Agency Member Bukowski.
Aye.
Agency Member Fricke.
Aye.
Agency Member Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Atkin.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye. Do I hear a motion on the city
I'll
resolution?
move,
Second,
I'll
move.
move the city resolution.
Do I have a second here? Call the roll, please.
And that'll have the same conditions added.
Same condition.
Okay, Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
If I may just make a comment
Yes.
just on this issue, as people may be aware, I serve on the Alameda County Housing Authority as a housing commissioner, and this particular project, at least at one point in time, had, I think, our largest cluster of Section 8 housing vouchers recipients of anywhere in the city. So I'm not sure exactly how this particular group will be affected because theoretically they go into places with market rate and the way that HUD subsidizes it is they make up the difference from 1/3 of their income to what the landlord is charging for rent. But I just wanted to make people aware of that this particular project had a concentration of Section 8 holders.
Moving on to item 7A, creating an ad hoc panel of city staff, community, and business members for selection of the South Bayfront pedestrian bicycle bridge design team. Patrick?
So at a previous agency meeting, we suggested that you might want to create a panel of people to oversee the selection of a design consultant, and we recommended to you that that include someone from Novartis who would be interested on the east landing of the bridge, someone from Madison Marquette concerning the west landing of the bridge, and then I think we had 3 residents slots that we suggested, and then also supported by certain staff members. And so then following that, we advertised and we received applications back from 4 people who were included in the packet, and then we wanted to call to your attention a 5th person Charles Debus, who, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who also expressed his interest in the panel, but after the deadline. So you potentially have, I think, 5 residents there for those 3 slots. So we're recommending that you appoint who you feel is appropriate to for those 3 citizen slots, and we're assuming that the Novartis and the Madison ones are acceptable.
I would seek the support of the council to add Charles Debus to the list.
Second.
Yeah, I agree, Nora.
Okay, so we will appoint what has been presented here, with the addition of Charles Debus.
I think it's pronounced DeBoss.
DeBoss.
Yeah.
Dubois.
So.
So you'll have a committee of 8 people.
No,
Oh, no, we have to choose 3.
we're going to pick 3 out of this group.
Oh,
Why not have them all?
I'm with you, Ken. I'd just as soon have them all. Could we get a third person to go along with that?
Is there a, what's the downside to just appointing everybody?
Well, the downside is that if you have a larger denominator, then you need a larger numerator for a quorum. And
No, you
the-
don't.
No, you don't. We've got
Our
4 people
rules
as a,
aren't like
4
that.
people as a quorum.
You only need,
4.
what is it, 3 people for a
4.
quorum?
I believe
4 for a quorum.
Councilmember Rakowski is
Yeah.
correct. 4
Okay, all right,
I
so
mean, it's a
that
difference of-
argument doesn't.
But I mean, the committee grows by, an extra,
One person.
one extra 2.
2.
It's, right now, there
Well-
would be 3 out of here, and you want to have 5 instead.
It's not a
I-
big
you know,
deal.
Nora, I think it's a good idea because here's the reason. I would say that my understanding is that there are 2. We know that there are going to be 2 meetings. One, which is an hour or 2 long, and another one that's going to be 5 hours. Okay, and so I think that it's important for all of the people that we appoint to be at those 2 meetings we definitely know
Right.
about. But when Charles called me, his first question was, what is the time commitment? And I told him, I said, well, we're definitely having these 2 meetings, but I said, this project is going to be another 10 months or 11 months in the design phase, and so I didn't tell him about the Park Avenue Advisory District Committee, but I had that in mind
False
when
advertising.
when I said, it could very well be that there are subsequent meetings, and he said, well, I'm okay with that. But some of these.
Well, he's got a very impressive resume, and I think it'd be a good addition.
Oh,
So
I'm looking
I'm going to
for
put forth a proposal for
Yeah.
all of them.
Second.
And Ken seconds, and do we have
I,
a third one?
I agree.
All right, let's see.
I look forward to having Jason and Brian on the same committee.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Department heads, any statements, communications, reports? Missing your chance. Okay, agency members.
Just have one item.
Okay.
And I honestly don't know if this belongs on the city council or here. Our funding for the new fishing pier, is that all just city general fund money?
City General.
I'll wait till the council agenda then.
Okay, the city council meeting is open. City manager, public comments.
Are you adjourning the,
Oh, I'm adjourning, thank you so much, Michael. Adjourning the agency meeting. We're moved right into the city council meeting. Any public comments? If not, we'll move right into the city manager's report.
So I wanted to let the council and the public know that we have concluded a very extensive recruitment process for the Community Services Director position, which is a key department head position that runs the Senior Center, Recreation Center, and Child Care Center, and has been supporting the Emeryville Center for Community Life. And we had a very good response to our solicitation. We had over 41 initial applicants. We asked a consultant to assist us in screening down to 7 applicants. Those 7 were interviewed by a panel of people. And from those, there were a list of the top 3 that I interviewed, and then subsequently offered the position to Melinda Chin, who is the Community Services Director for the City of Albany. And Melinda has served in that capacity for 8 years. She's been in the recreation business for 28 years, and I'm very excited to see her able to join us on April 16th for a couple of reasons. One is that in her current position, she's been responsible for all of the same divisions and programs and centers that we have, and so she has great familiarity with all 3 of the divisions that she'll be overseeing here. And then secondly, she also had experience at Albany in staffing community access cable TV channel, and was instrumental in developing a really good communications strategy for their department and top award-winning activities guide. So those are all areas that we need to strengthen, and she has the capability to do that. So I'll bring her to the next council meeting after April 16th.
She's also staff for the JPA ball fields project.
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to say, I mean, I think it's impressive that we're, as a little city, we're able to attract somebody that's already doing this job in a much bigger locale, and I think that's terrific. And just, Pat, I think it's good for us to say to the public that might be out there still with us, that when you talk about the 3 divisions, it's the Senior Center, the Child Development Center, and the Recreation Program. And hopefully expanding with more to come as we move towards the Center for Community Life.
Anything else, Patrick?
That's it.
Do I hear a motion on the consent calendar?
I move the consent calendar.
Without objection, the consent calendar is approved. Moving into public hearings, item 6B, introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the City of Emeryville adopting the food service waste reduction of Title VI of the Emeryville Municipal Code and amending Section 1-2.01 of Chapter 2 of Title I of the Emeryville Municipal Code. Michael Guina.
Good evening, Mayor
Good evening.
Davis and members of the City Council. Michael Guina, Deputy City Attorney. For your consideration is a proposed ordinance which would add a new chapter to the Municipal Code titled Food Service Waste Reduction. The ordinance would enact 2 basic requirements. Number 1, a prohibition on the use of disposable food serviceware made from either polystyrene foam or non-compostable plastic, and 2, a requirement that disposable food serviceware is compostable or recyclable unless there is no available compostable or recyclable alternative available. I'll note that the prohibition on the use of non-compostable plastic was an amendment to the original ordinance, which was part of the original staff packet, and that was described in the memo that was distributed to you. The food serviceware requirements will apply to food vendors as defined in the ordinance, city facilities, and city-sponsored events. In addition, the ordinance would update the penalty provisions of the municipal code to make violations of the new chapter punishable as infractions. Polystyrene foam, often known as styrofoam, is commonly used for disposable food service containers such as plates and clamshell boxes. Non-compostable plastics are often used as disposable utensils. Products made from these materials are designed for a useful life of minutes or hours, but continue to exist in the environment for years afterward. And currently, there is no meaningful way to recycle polystyrene foam in California. The proposed ordinance would address these issues by regulating the use of disposable food serviceware by vendors in the city. Disposable food serviceware would include containers, bowls, plates, utensils, and other items designed for one-time use both on and off the food vendor's premises. In terms of implementation, the city manager or his or her designee would be responsible for enforcement of the ordinance. As part of that implementation, staff will prepare and distribute a list of available compostable or recyclable food serviceware and suppliers of those products. As an example, a list which was developed by the City of Oakland for that city's ordinance is attached to your staff report. Regarding exemptions from the ordinance, an individual food vendor can request an exemption from one or more requirements of the ordinance by filing a written request with the city manager. Grounds for exemption would include a showing that a specific compostable or recyclable product is unavailable for a particular application. Exemptions would be valid for a 1-year period, and any request for further extensions would have to be made prior to the expiration of the current exemption period. The city manager's decision to allow or deny an exemption or extension of an exemption would be final and not subject to further administrative review. In addition, staff would develop and distribute a list of generally exempted food service items applicable to all vendors. And this universal exemption would recognize that suitable alternative products may not necessarily be immediately available for some food service items. The generally exempted items would apply to all vendors and would eliminate the necessity of large numbers of individuals seeking exemptions for the same type of product. And then finally, foods which are prepared or packaged outside of the city would also be exempt from the ordinance, although those vendors would be encouraged to use compostable or recyclable products in their materials. Staff will prepare a set of regulations for implementation of the ordinance and would bring back those rules to you at a future hearing. Regarding the operative date of the ordinance would become operative on January 1st, 2008. This will allow time for food vendors to use their existing stock of non-compliant food serviceware. The lead time would also give staff an opportunity to educate food vendors about the ordinance requirements and allow vendors to procure alternative compliant products. Regarding the notice of tonight's hearing, a notice was posted throughout the city at the usual locations. The same notice and a copy of the proposed ordinance were mailed to food service vendors appearing on the city's business license records. The Emeryville Chamber of Commerce was advised of the ordinance and asked to solicit its members for their comments or concerns. Denise Pinkston of TMG Partners had submitted a letter in support of a proposed polystyrene ban, and a copy of that is attached to your staff report. Other than that, staff has not received any comments from the public regarding the proposed ordinance. The Public Works Committee considered this item at its February meeting, and the committee recommended the City Council adopt the ordinance. So staff's recommendation is that the council introduce the ordinance after a motion to be read by title only, the public hearing be opened, public comment be taken, and then the public hearing be closed, and the City Council adopt the first reading of the ordinance. That is the conclusion of my report. Peter Schultz-Allen is also present and will have and has examples of food serviceware items that would be prohibited under the ordinance, as well as alternative compostable or recyclable products.
I
Do
just
I
want
hear a
Peter-
motion to read by title only?
Oh, yeah. I'll move
Yeah,
that.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to read by title only. Mr. Biddle?
Objection?
No.
Objection.
No objection.
Okay, an ordinance of the City of Emeryville adopting Chapter 14, Food Service Waste Reduction of Title 6 of the Emeryville Municipal Code and amending Section 1-2.01 subsection F of Chapter 2 of Title 1 of the Emeryville Municipal Code regarding violations.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. Pardon me, can I ask every member of the council if they have not used already these
Yeah, we're familiar with it, at least I am.
I think we're all familiar with this, Peter. Unless
I
you
was,
have
I was
something.
just hoping that they
I-
were filled with,
Actually,
with food and that you could pass them around, and then we can see the waste
Yeah,
after
what were you
that.
thinking
Come
of?
on, our blood
You know
sugar's
what? I
getting
think
low
that
here.
I think it would be value. We saw this in the Public Works Committee, but it would be value the replacements, so that
Oh, very good.
the replacement plastic containers that are available. So in other words, a food vendor is not out of luck.
Thank you, council members, for this.
Hey, they're filled.
This evening, I brought a few examples to show with you. First, I just want to show you something that the marketplace is changing, and I think that what we've seen in Oakland and San Francisco reflects that they passed ordinances related to compostable food serviceware. But even outside of that area, this is an example from Trader Joe's. Just in regular packaging, for example, Trader Joe's, this package here with the larger tomatoes is a compostable plastic made out of cornstarch. And if you turn it over, I'll pass it around. It does say compostable underneath. It's this PLA plastic, polylactic acid, which is a somewhat energy-intensive procedure. And in general, I would recommend that paper products are probably, especially unbleached paper products, are a better alternative than some of these bioplastics because they're often grown with corn that uses a lot of chemical fertilizers and chemical herbicides and that kind of stuff, and then it's shipped long distances, and it's large companies that are involved in that. So I'm not really sure how great this is in the overall picture, but I have lots of other examples here. So I'll pass that around. You can. This is a regular plastic, just for your comparison.
Peter, I don't know about bringing tomatoes to an elected council member meeting. I mean, we have enough problems as it
Thank
is.
God you didn't open it up earlier on.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but yeah, okay. And here's another example of a, this is a compostable plastic water bottle that's also on the market now.
How do you know? That any
You have to turn it over and you have to look.
Okay.
And this one, it says number 7 PLA.
Okay.
So number 7 being other, but often it just says compostable on the bottom, or it'll say BPI certification, BPI being the Biodegradable Plastics Institute is a certification for that. We're getting back to, here's an example. You know, Berkeley was the first 15 years or 17 years ago to have the styrofoam ban, and this is an example of what happened with that. Here's Jamba Juice in Emeryville with the styrofoam, and here's in Berkeley, as it is today, in a paper cup. So I'll pass those around. It's the exact same thing. Basically, Jamba Juice, being, you know, a corporate chain, had to adapt to Berkeley's ordinance.
Surprising they didn't just adapt across the board. It looks like you get less in Berkeley. Is that part of the deal?
Yeah, that could be. Maybe they don't fill it up all the way. What our ordinance would do is take that same container, and they could use paper, but the lid and the straw would have to be made out of the cornstarch-based PLA plastic. And basically, the straw is about the same price, actually. The PLA straws are about a penny each. That straw is about a penny each, from what I can tell from my research. The lid is roughly 3 cents for that kind of a lid, and 5 cents for the corn-based one. So
when are
not
they going to go to like what the coffee shops do? You could bring your own
Yes,
container in.
That's also mentioned in Oakland's ordinance, and I think in the kind of the cheat sheet that they developed, that they send out to, you know, this one here, for example, is a two-sided, and it says, what can, you know, when a business person says, what can I do to reduce my food service ware waste? It says you can use reusable dishes and cups, or you can tell your customers that they can bring in a mug, for example, and have it filled there, like at a Starbucks. They even, some places even give you a discount for that kind of thing. So I think we are going to see more of that. At the public market, for example, I was there today doing a little market research, and almost everybody there uses a styrofoam.
Come on, you're having lunch, we know.
They have a styrofoam plate or a styrofoam clamshell, but there are a couple there that use, for example, a large plastic bowl that is washed. They have their own little washing area there. And Askew Grill, I believe it was, at Bay Street, was when they first started, they used a heavy black plastic single-use, you know, disposable plate, and then they switched over and they actually got a little washing machine. They got a half-time person to wash the stuff, and it's actually cheaper for them to do that than to use the disposable stuff.
That's interesting.
So they were using it was a heavier duty plastic, black plastic that was maybe more expensive than styrofoam. So, you know, there are trade-offs. I put together a little bit of a kit here. If you bought your kind of standard styrofoam clamshell, and you got a plastic cup with it, and a regular fork, that would cost about 26 cents for that to-go items. It's about 6 cents for a cup, 15 cents for a styrofoam thing, and about 5 cents for the fork. And depending on, you know, how much the volume you buy, the prices vary, of course. And if you switch to a compostable one, maybe this one here, or this one here is made out of a sugarcane fiber called bagasse. And you use the compostable plastic fork that can be either made out of potato starch or cornstarch. And you did a different kind of cup, which, for example, at the Oakland Coliseum, they use this cup, which is the compostable PLA for the beer cups now. They were the biggest one in the area, really, to switch over. That was a big deal.
Notice again how small it is.
Yeah, that's
$9.
I'm assuming that it's the same number of ounces. You what?
It's expensive.
$8 beer, yeah, well.
We haven't raised our prices in 4 years. It's just the
So that compostable kit is about 18 cents more. It's about 44 cents. So 18 cents more, depending on the volume, and there's lots of different factors there. But yeah, so 26 versus 44 cents. So what Oakland has said is that you can, the increase, that 18 cents additional, you could put up a little sign at your business and you could say, you know, we're charging you 18 cents extra because of Oakland's ordinance. And that's really, in summarizing here, the main difference that we're proposing here is that Oakland's ordinance said you can't use styrofoam, you got to use something compostable unless the price is equal to or less. And so they kind of had that affordability index. Then San Francisco said you can't use styrofoam, you got to use something compostable or recyclable, but we'll have a 15% margin. So they kind of upped the ante a little bit. We're saying let's just make it compostable or recyclable, no affordability complex. So that is a new wrinkle that could have some effect in Emeryville differently from the other cities.
It doesn't look like it turned out a whole horde of people objecting to it.
Not tonight, yeah. Does seem
It
like that.
doesn't say you implement it until you get the problem.
Yes, and yeah, the fact that we have the single largest user of styrofoam probably in the city is the public market, I believe. So if they're supporting it, so I think that's kind of like the Oakland Coliseum, switching over. It's our big user. So
It's an idea whose time has come.
I think so. Thank you.
Can we just open and
Yeah,
close
sure.
the public hearing? Public hearing is open. Anybody want to come forward? Public hearing is closed. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I just want to mention, in January, I went to the U.S. Composting Conference in Orlando, and next year it's going to be here in Oakland, so anybody that's interested in this kind of products would want to mark your calendar for next year.
When are we going to get a compost facility in Alameda County?
We're working on it.
Yeah, Ken.
I do want to make one suggested change to the ordinance, and that would be in 6-14.04 with the exemptions. I think that the decision of the city manager should be appealable to the city council, and that would be the only change that I would recommend.
Six what?
6-14.04.
Page 5.
Will anybody support that?
Wait, let me read it.
I don't want to hear food protests. I don't know.
Well, you're just giving another opportunity for somebody. I mean, doesn't mean you have to go against the manager's decision. It just provides.
No, I know, but I'm just saying I'm not excited about having those things on our agenda.
Is there anyone that supports Ken's suggestion?
Okay.
It doesn't look like you have a second.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm
Don't go away, Peter.
Here's mine really, I guess, goes to definitions. What I'm trying to, I guess it's under F on page 3, food vendor. And what I'm curious about is this
Under
intended?
definition?
Under definitions, yeah. So again, it's page 3 of 8 and item F. Are caterers supposed to be included in this, or are they excluded? Because it's different. I mean, what's different, and I didn't hear from Paul or Jim LeDuc on this, but it dawned on me that it's very different for a restaurant that's got a fixed place that's doing business here in Emeryville, and a caterer, for example, them across the street that has their kitchen here, but I don't remember the last time they had an event in Emeryville, and so they're out providing their product all over the Bay Area.
Well, they happened to provide china when they catered the mayor's conference in this very room.
Right.
Have any throwaway stuff?
But well,
I don't really think that
I don't know that they do,
goes
but-
into styrofoam.
Well, what I'm
Quite
suggesting,
frankly. Yeah, really.
what I'm suggesting it doesn't have anything to do with them specifically, but I'm suggesting that catering businesses should be exempt from this, because I just don't think they're the same as a fixed restaurant that's doing business here in Emeryville.
I don't agree with
I don't
that.
agree with you.
Consider the birds.
Have we talked to caterers about it, so we know?
Caterers are included.
They are included
They're vendors,
Where
food
does it
vendors.
say that?
Definition of restaurant.
under the definition.
Right.
But they're not a restaurant.
Okay.
They create
The way
styrofoam waste.
the ordinance before you defines a restaurant is an establishment that prepares food for consumption either on or off its premises. So, given that definition, given that Paul LeDuc, for example, prepares food for consumption within the city, regardless of where that food is ultimately consumed, whether within the city or outside the city limits, they would
Yeah.
be.
I mean, it's just interesting that most, food, or for most of these caterers, is being presented outside the city of Emeryville in other jurisdictions that may or may not have these kinds of restrictions. And it seems it's very different from a restaurant that's here in town. And I don't think it's fair to include them for that reason. I mean, it's...
I would say that we borrowed this language from San Francisco and Oakland's ordinances for the most part. Most of it came directly from San Francisco's. So I think there is some value in doing something regionally. If all of San Francisco's caterers, for example, are following this guideline here, then, and they're coming over here and they're serving food here, then maybe we should be reciprocal. And
Charge for that cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, most
Yeah.
caterers aren't really in the to-go business, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know that they don't have that, so, all right.
Right.
I have one other comment.
I think it's also related to litter too. That I mean, theoretically, a caterer could have litter, you know, in the same way that other businesses could have litter.
Still gets into the waste stream. Go
And
ahead,
therefore,
Jim.
you know, and part of the reason for banning styrofoam is that it's just not a healthy material to use to package food in, and so it's seen as a public health issue to have food packaged in polystyrene. The other ones, maybe there's not as many issues with, but I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't want anybody to use styrofoam.
Peter, how difficult would it be to have some kind of an award for the business that has the most percentage of compostable?
Well, they certainly could be eligible to get in the Green Business Program and then be recognized through that. Also, that recently approved coupon book for sustainable businesses. That's the type of place that these businesses that are doing composting of their food waste could be eligible to be included in there too, so they could get marketing through that.
Okay, I think we ought to do that.
But I agree with Ken. I think it'd be good to have a little incentive system, you know, something where they can come and get recognized.
All right.
Could I hear a motion on the ordinance?
Move approval, first reading.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Item 6C, resolution of the City Council denying the appeal of Andre Carpio and upholding the Planning Commission's January 25th, 2007 decision approving a second-story addition to an existing single-family home located at 1268 Ocean Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor Davis and other council members. This is an appeal of a Planning Commission decision of January 25th of this year, approving a second-story addition to a single-family home located in the medium-density residential zone at 1268 Ocean Avenue.
Susan, could you identify yourself for people at home that may not know who you are?
My name is Susan Summerford. I'm in the planning department. I'm planning technician.
The appeal, Andre's not here, right?
I don't see him, no.
Okay. Okay.
He was notified.
Yeah, I'm sure. He must be.
He was notified. I mailed it myself, and also earlier, right before the meeting, I was out visiting the site and taking pictures and had a conversation with someone who was going in his house and reminded them about the meeting.
Okay. Did he put up $200 to make this appeal?
No, he did not. He was given a fee waiver by the council.
When you set the hearing date at your last meeting,
Okay,
you
all right.
approved a fee waiver.
Really? Okay.
Try it one more time, Susan.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this, Mr. Carpio appealed the decision of the Planning Commission approving the second-story addition to the home. The history of this project is it's two single-family homes on a single parcel. One fronts on Ocean Avenue, the other fronts to the rear on Peabody Lane. This is the house in question. It was burned very severely last summer, and the owner was desirous of rehabilitating the building after the burn. And he applied for a building permit to do so. Along the way, he also decided he'd like to put a second story, increasing the square footage of the house from 852 to 1,428, adding 2 new bedrooms in the upstairs and a bathroom, therefore making it more livable for a family. He needed a conditional use permit because of the increase in the floor area ratio, which during the slew of ordinances last summer was now applicable to residential developments. The existing floor area ratio of the livable property is 0.49, and it was to be increased to 0.63, still under the allowable FAR of 0.75, but still in need of a conditional use permit. The Planning Commission heard the public hearing and approved the project on January 25th. I received a couple of letters from Mr. Carpio, all of which were included in your packet, appealing the decision. The main basis for the appeals are issues of privacy for the adjoining neighbors, an issue of an added burden to street parking, and preservation of neighborhood character. The first issue of privacy for the neighbors can be illustrated. I'm sorry, with so many copying, this is not very clear now. This is the front setback of the building in question. And in Andre's letters, he identified the next door neighbor, this house at 1270 Ocean Avenue, as being potentially impacted by the addition of this second story. The windows that are already in existence at the subject site at 1268 Ocean are not in alignment with the eastern windows of 1270 Ocean Avenue, and the addition of the second story, the windows will be in alignment with the ones in the downstairs area. Therefore, the only line of sight that will be visible here, the only line of sight that the second story will have will be to the roof of Miss DeZonia, who lives at 1270 Ocean, and her backyard. The building that is to the rear of the subject site, which is also on the parcel, is meant to be a mirror of the newly proposed addition. They're both going to be the same height, 26 feet, and they'll be staggered to the street line, providing a good elevation. I realized how much above grade the northern side of Ocean Avenue was today as I was out there trying to take some pictures that would illustrate this, and it was difficult. I'm climbing up on the fence trying to provide some sight for you all to see that I don't believe that there's going to be any privacy issues for the next door neighbor over here at 1270.
Clearly, the next door neighbor did not come to the Planning Commission or has not come tonight with a privacy issue.
No, she hasn't.
Nor has she contacted us at any time
No,
about
she
this
hasn't.
application.
I have, however, had other discussions with the owner of this property, Ms. DeZonia, when she was having some lot line adjustment issues with her neighbor to the west. So we do have a dialogue, and we have spoken, so I'm familiar with her and feel pretty certain that we would be hearing from her should she have any objections to this project. The other issue that Andre highlighted in his appeal was the issue of street parking. The property as it is now is not self-parking for the unit that's fronting Ocean Avenue. That is to say, there's no parking on the site. The new construction doesn't allow for an addition of a garage or a driveway, nor do the addition of the third and fourth bedrooms trigger any additional parking requirements according to the zoning code. They're not asking for a variance for parking, and the situation is just deemed legal nonconforming. The other basis for the appeal is the preservation of neighborhood character. And again, I was out there today taking another look around, as I've done so many times, because we have a lot of projects on Ocean Avenue. And directly across the street is a little cluster of townhomes that I couldn't, without going down into the driveway, I couldn't really see how many units there actually are, but it seemed to be a number of them. So it is a mix of the single-family bungalows, mostly on the northern portion of Ocean Avenue. Then across the street on the southern portion, there are duplexes, small apartment buildings, and this cluster of townhomes directly across the street.
It is important to preserve neighborhood character. This parcel that this subject site is on already has a split level, single-family home. And as I said before, they're meant to mirror each other almost as bookends, starting at the highest point in the middle of the parcel, staggering down to the street.
Any questions for Susan?
I
With
move
that,
the- I move the
wait,
resolution.
wait. We'll open the public hearing. Anybody like to speak? We'll close the public hearing. I'd entertain a motion, Ken.
I move the recommendation in the packet.
Second.
Without exception, the motion passes.
I'm going to explain why I'm denying it. One of the things I looked at is the FAR that's going to result in the future project, and it is close to what my house is. Now, of course, I don't live in the neighborhood, but I'm using that as a reference point, and I think that it's a reasonable mass for the block, and it's the way that we can have a zoning ordinance that preserves the original structures. So that's why I'm voting to deny the appeal.
On second thought, would you call the roll on the motion?
Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
Aye.
Wait, hold the phone here.
I move the recommendation that was in the packet.
You moved the recommendation that was in the packet. Start over.
Councilmember
Are you saying aye to that?
The recommendation is to deny the appeal.
Right.
Right,
Deny the appeal. So we are
So that's-
voting yes to deny the appeal.
okay.
And uphold the planning commission's
Right.
decision.
Uphold the planning
That's-
commission. All right, sorry, John.
Oh, no problem.
Lost my head.
We lawyers like double negatives.
All right. Go,
Start
carry
over.
on.
Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cassis. Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville granting an annual card room license to the Oaks
Move
Card
approval.
Club. I believe that's a public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
We'll open the public hearing. Anybody like to talk about the Oaks? We'll close the public hearing. Is there a
approval.
motion and a second? Do I have here a second?
Second.
Without exception, the card club license is approved. Resolution
I'm
of
sorry, Mayor
the...
Davis. That last vote, I heard two different votes, so I was just trying to figure out which one was for the record.
Oh,
Well, I made mine before the public hearing was done, so mine
Yes.
doesn't apply. So whoever, I think Ken moved and John seconded.
Thank you.
okay, without exception, we're okay with the Oaks Card Club. Item E, the resolution of the City Council issuing a cabaret permit to Kitty's. Is there anyone, we'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to this? We'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
Without exception, the motion is approved. Transportation, 8A, Transportation Committee report.
That's it.
You're in.
That was anticlimactic.
Heck of a job.
Okay. Transportation Committee report. Ken.
You mean Ken James?
Ken James. Chief James.
Yeah, okay.
Generally, I don't make a report on this, it just,
Okay.
Move
I
approval.
move, second.
Without exception, the committee recommendations are approved. Consideration of reappointments.
approval.
Second.
Without exception, the reappointments and the appointment are approved. Communications and reports, department heads, Mr. Biddle.
Mayor Davis, I just wanted to bring to the council's attention that I left with you as well as with various other members of the Planning Commission, the Housing and Public Art Committee, as well as to city department heads, some resources regarding ethics laws, and there's a little cover memo, and there's information that was provided in your inbox. So I just wanted to alert you to that, and so you can use that for your own purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other department heads? Charlie.
Mayor Davis, I'd like to call to the council's attention a time-sensitive issue. You have on the dais before you an action alert, and I realize it's not really identified where this comes from, but it's from the League of California Cities, and it's about a pending Senate Bill 303, which has to do with the general plan and the housing element. The reason why this is somewhat urgent is that there is a hearing in Sacramento on March 27th, which is prior to your next city council meeting. The League is urging cities to oppose this legislation. Just to quickly summarize what it would do is this would double the planning period for the regional housing needs allocation from 5 years to 10 years, and it would require local agencies to pre-zone their housing needs for the entire 10-year period, and would require that every single site that's identified be analyzed to ensure that the size, configuration, use, physical and environmental characteristics, adjacent uses, market demand, and infrastructure will realistically accommodate the planned density of the parcel. This would be a massive and costly undertaking, even for a little city like Emeryville. And the bill, according to the League's analysis, would have the effect of undercutting local and regional efforts to steer housing development to infill areas, and instead would encourage suburban sprawl. So the League, as I said, is encouraging cities to oppose this legislation. Attached to the action alert is a sample letter of opposition. With the council's concurrence, I'm proposing to draft a letter for the mayor's signature opposing this legislation to send off before March 27th.
Could we make it
Mr.
in the
Biddle,
form
do
of...
we need an urgency item on this?
Well, if there's any objections for doing so, we were just going to go ahead as more of an information item.
All right.
I don't object to doing so, but I think it'd be better if we did an urgency resolution, and that you could write rather than a letter from the mayor. I think a resolution has a little more effect than the letter from the
Well,
mayor.
the problem is we have to do that right now because it needs to
Well-
be there by March 27th.
You could write
We
the...
don't have to, we can do the resolution, we can prepare it subsequently along the lines of the letter.
Right.
Right, you move an urgency item.
Yes, I move an urgency
Do we have
item.
a second here? Without exception, we have approved the urgency item, and you then...
Now, I would move that we prepare a letter and a resolution indicating our opposition to this bill. Resolution.
Resolution.
Yeah.
We hear a second?
Second.
Without exception. Any other department heads? Any council members?
I'd
Yeah,
like
I
to
have one item. Good.
Ken?
I have an idea that I would like to float out there. You know, we have a lot of community meetings, and a lot of times people aren't notified or that they're not aware of it. And it comes to my attention that we have, during political campaigns, we have these automatic dialers that call voters and ask you to vote for people. Well, why couldn't we create a situation where we have an automatic dialer that notified people of community meetings? So if you signed up for this list, the staff would just prepare an automatic dial-up message, and it would automatically call everybody that's on the list and make them aware of a meeting. It couldn't cost that much to do it, and it would certainly improve community involvement at meetings. So I would like to suggest that we get one of these dialers. It could even be used in an emergency if we had to notify a lot of people of anything. So I would see a real benefit in in order to get the phone call, you'd have to sign up for the list, and your name would just be factored and put into the computer, and then you'd automatically receive a call for each meeting.
Why don't we bounce that to the staff committee that's working on communication
Oh, that's good,
methods,
that's part of that,
and have
yeah.
them take a look at that. I think it's got some merit. I have no idea on the cost on those things. So.
You know, the only thing I would say is, despite the fact that we might not want it to be otherwise, I think most people might construe that as becoming a public nuisance.
They don't have to sign up for the call then. You'd have to sign
Oh,
up
you'd
to
have
get
to
the...
sign up for,
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Got it.
Any other council members?
I just wanted to alert people that the Emory Ed Fund puts on 2 significant fundraisers every year, and they're both coming up, and one, it benefits the music program, and it'll be at Expression with Pete Escovedo performing. And what I understand last time is that people really danced the early night away, and that it was a lot of fun. I don't know, do you remember the date for that? I don't remember the date, but it's a Wednesday night from 6 to 8 in April. And then the other major fundraisers at Pixar's expense every year, they do a pre-release showing of their latest film, which is this year's film is Ratatouille, and that both will probably sell out. So I just
When
wanted-
is that?
June.
Friday, June 8th.
Just wanted to help with this. The Expressions fundraiser is April 18th.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Anyone else? Any other council members?
I just want to say that I had a chance, actually ran a couple staff, went out last night and took a quick look at the fishing pier, which is sort of open, but not officially yet, and it's fantastic. I really didn't expect it to look as good as it does. I have two concerns that I want to express. The first is that we didn't do anything about lighting. And the old pier had places for lighting, although they had been broken out and the wiring had been stripped out of them and it hadn't worked for years. But people do walk out there at night, and I think it would be a good idea for us to look at a way about lighting that after the fact. I don't know if conduit's already out there. I would hope so.
We actually didn't provide conduit in the structure for the lighting, but if it was something that you really wanted to add, we could do that as an after.
Yeah. So I don't know what committee is the right one, if that's the Marina Committee or if there's some other committee to look at that and come back to the council
Well-
with a recommendation.
It's a public
Probably Public
safety
Works,
issue.
probably
Yeah.
Public Works.
I think it's, and I'm just kind of coming to that whole feeling even on the Marina Park and these other parks. In theory, they close at dusk, but people are out there. And it seems to me that we ought to just recognize that and light these places in ways that aren't obtrusive to the neighborhoods
agree.
that surround them, but try to make them safer than they are. So, I don't know, maybe that's a public safety issue. Maybe that should go to the,
When are we going to have a lighting assessment district come before
yeah.
us?
Anyway, what's the right,
Anything else?
well, whatever, I'd just like to know what the right committee is, and I'd like to ask that they take that up.
I think the Marina Committee would be the
Okay.
appropriate one.
We don't
so-
meet, though, very often, so,
Yeah, but we've got a couple of items now that we
Okay.
could call a meeting for. It's
All right.
just on an as-needed basis.
Okay.
so.
And then the second part of that, which is the obvious problem, is, a very nice leaning rail has been created at an angle, and unfortunately, the pigeons seem to really like it a lot as a place to do their business, and it's been there such a little time period, and it's already badly fouled. I'd like to know what we're planning on doing in terms of ongoing maintenance to keep that not that way.
Well, we hadn't anticipated the pigeons being as big a problem as they are. They didn't seem to be as big a problem with the previous railings, but we weren't really looking at them as close. They weren't as new. So, it's probably going to be one of those things where we're going to need to go out there and scrub it down once in a while.
Yeah, I think one of the things we got to find out is whether what we can scrub that with, because of most of it's going to go in the bay, and I realize that happens anyway.
I
But
presume water.
Yeah,
Just
but I'd like us
water,
to
pure water.
get on that soon, because that's something that's going to have to just be done every single week, and maybe more frequently than once
It's
a
a
week.
very long railing.
Yeah, I know it is. It's interesting because the old railing was flat, and they didn't like that much, but they seem to like this angle thing, It's just, like an attractive nuisance. Maybe just put up a sign, no pigeons, and they'll go away.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
yeah, right.
Anyway, can we get some feedback as to what we're going to do and how frequently we're going to do it?
You bet, we
Because
can
it's
look
just
into
too nice of a new amenity to just look like it does. Thanks.
John?
I attended the Bay Area Council meeting a week or so ago in San Francisco, so it was a good meeting. I saw Ted Turner.
Make his ridiculous remarks
About
Asians.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Okay, no other comments from anyone? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, one and all.